Meeting is now in session. Let's have the invocation. Is that you, Mr. Miranda?
Yes, sir.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it's my pleasure this morning to present to us individuals doing the invocation. Pastor Kerry Nance. He's married to a wife, Amy. They have 3 kids, Abigail, Andrew, and Avery. He started preaching at age 15 at the Christian School Retreat, graduated from the Providence Christian School in 1988, graduated from Trinity Baptist College in Jacksonville in 1992, received a BA degree in pastoral theology, earned a master's degree from Trinity Baptist College in 2005. He started at Southside Baptist Church in Tampa in August of 2003, and he's currently the chaplain for the Tampa Police Department. And it's my pleasure this morning, please stand for the invocation, remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, to present Pastor Kerry Nance.
Would you join me as we pray? Our Father, we're so thankful today for the opportunity to be here. And Lord, we thank you for being a gracious God. And Lord, our hearts are heavy for the tragedies that we've heard about across our country this last weekend. And Lord, we do pray for the victims of those in Ohio and Texas, and pray that you might help their family. And Lord, be with those that are working with them and helping them. And Lord, we pray that you would not only heal them physically, but Lord, the emotions that are there, and Lord, all the things that are going on. And Lord, we do pray for our country. We ask, oh God, that you would give great grace upon our nation. And Lord, we thank you for Tampa. Lord, we thank you for this city and for the leadership. We thank you, Lord, for the city council. We thank you, Lord, for the favor that you've shown. Lord, we've seen growth and prosperity and blessing, and Lord, even protection from storms. And God, I just pray today that you would give grace. I pray that you would give wisdom. I pray, Lord, that you'd be with our first responders, Lord, as they stand on the front lines and keep us safe. Lord, we just ask that you'd put a special hedge around the firemen and police and those that work so diligently there. And Father, I do pray that you would be with our city council in a special way. Give them, Lord, your favor. Lord, give them wisdom. I know, Lord, there's a lot of work and hard decisions that go on, and I just pray, Father, that you would direct them. And Father, continue to put your hand upon this city, and it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Please be seated. Roll call.
Dingfelder.
Here.
Goods.
Here.
Maniscalco.
Here.
Vieira. Miranda.
Here.
Carlson.
Here.
And Citro.
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, council members, this Councilman Vieira is here now. Let's start with agenda item number 1, please. Ms. Goodley, good morning to you.
Good morning. So I'm here to give the report for the East Tampa CRA. And so the last time I personally spoke, we had a different city council or CRA board. So I'm going to give a little bit more of a history, I suppose. So we're desperately trying to grow, but we face a mountain of an obstacle facing and overcoming our history. East Tampa did not mysteriously become poverty-stricken and blighted. Currently, we have a population that's about 75% Black, 11% Hispanic or Latino, and 11% white. I personally currently live in North Ybor and was told that years ago it's where your successful Blacks lived. And it was a true mixed income community, bolstering doctors, lawyers, longshoremen, teachers, city workers, and blue-collar workers alike. And then instead of desegregation, integration occurred, and those with the means to move into white America did so, leaving the families without the means behind. Overnight, it changed from a mixed income community to a low income community. Businesses soon pulled out of the community as the school grades also began to slip and code issues increased with no solutions. The interstates became clear boundary lines telling others where to and where not to go. And then we lost vital exits from the interstate, once again, suffocating an already asthmatic community. With the boundary lines clearly drawn and an increase in poverty, East Tampa became the place no one wanted to visit and only the poor lived. Businesses stopped investing in the community as the blight continued to rise. Code issues went uncited, maintenance unchecked as the mountain grew bigger and bigger. Fast forward now to present day, and many of those concerns have resurfaced. Closing exits along our interstates, schools still suffering, diminished businesses in our community, dilapidated homes and buildings with an increase in overgrowth. As the ETCRP, we're striving to bring about the much needed change, much needed effective change within our footprint, but we need the city's actual support and buy-in. So we reach out to departments, we need responses, and when we offer our suggestions, we need them met, we don't need them met with sarcasm nor with a condescending tone. Again, East Tampa didn't get here overnight, and we won't get out overnight. When downtown was blighted, growth was stunted. We created a plan of action to turn it around. We concentrated large sums of money into the area, and we actively sought out developers to build. We had a micro focus on downtown to make it what it is today. We need that same effort in East Tampa. We didn't get here by ourselves, and we need the large sums of money dedicated to our area. We need the city to actively seek out developers to build within our footprint, and we need a micro focus on East Tampa, and we need the city's buy-in. Currently within the CRA, we're working on cleaning up the area to help end the blight. As I said, the last time we came, that was one of the main issues with developers was the blight. So we're working with solid waste and code enforcement to try to change that around. We recently just voted to hire 5 part-time youth from our summer youth program that will continue on throughout the year and hopefully segue them into permanent city positions. We voted to put together a small business workshop cohort with the Black Business Investment Corp so that we can focus on economic development. We're currently in the process of creating our down payment assistance program so that we can help tackle affordable housing. We're also in the process of working to establish our rehab assistance program, which would of course help with the quality of life. We are hoping to create some neighborhood projects with the neighborhood associations to get their buy-in and actively have an aesthetic increase in our community, and as well as art projects. So this is where, of course, we still need your help. We need help when it comes to our legal department. The turnaround, unfortunately, has been long. And so programs that we're creating, it takes a very long time to actually get them started. If you notice, we have a rollover, and part of it's because we are still waiting on some programs to come back. So if we could kind of help close the gap with the turnaround, with creating programs for our community, that would help. Last time I came, I spoke about the environmental pond on 26th Avenue, 26th Street. I've heard differing things. I've met with different departments, and whether it can be actually built upon, cultivated, used for the community, I keep hearing differing reports. And again, with those ideas, if we can, let's move forward. If we can't, let's not and find another project. Of course, we're still looking for a grocery store. Again, the blight within our community is holding us back, and we're trying to work on that. But of course, that's not all within us. We have to also work with code. We have to work with solid waste, but we need a grocery store, and we do have a food desert. Again, USF is doing a study on that now. And so having the city's concerted effort in trying to help us find a developer that would be willing to open a grocery store would be great. With our proposed ideas, we're trying to actually overcome what we have. Like I said, the mountain of obstacles. So we're coming up with ideas. I'd really like to be able to flesh out those ideas within the various departments within the city. And I think if we can work to, as these ideas come forward, we actually sit down and flesh them out, and can we do it? How can we make this happen? How can we work to help increase East Tampa? That would be great. A cultural enrichment center at Albarnes Park. If you're not aware, almost all of our parks and recreational parks within the area are busting at the seams with children. And our seniors have been crying for a dedicated space for quite some time. So we've been asking to try to, and Al Barnes Park has not been developed or updated in quite some time. So we've been asking to try to get something there so that we can alleviate the pressure from the other parks and also create a dedicated space for our seniors. And also helping to attract smaller developers on commercial projects. Of course, we can always get the larger developers to come in, but most of the time they have no interest in coming into East Tampa. And the ones who do have the interest are the smaller ones. So if we could work to try to help those individuals or those developers who have the heart, have the energy, and have the desire to actually develop some of our old commercial thoroughways and buildings, that would be great. And with our code open cases, we have great people working with code, on staff with code now, and that's great. But we have some code cases that have been out for 5 years, 4 years, 3 years. And it's, again, that's a blight. We have, the last time I came, we had a couple issues, and those issues are still standing. We have businesses who come in and don't provide any positive change to our community. They thrive on the blight, and they get cited constantly, and they have many code issues, but yet they continually are allowed to operate. And so we need that help, because that's part of why when I rode around with the developers, they said I wouldn't build here. One of the developers said if you built the building and gave us the land free, we still wouldn't build a grocery store here because of how it looks. So we need your help in changing that around. And also getting our solid waste and code enforcement kind of on the same page as well. We've been working to try to make that happen, but changing and getting rid of the blight is almost number one and imperative. So make no mistake, I attend all the neighborhood association meetings within our footprint. And I do so because many of them don't, unfortunately, come to our CRA meetings. And I hear what the residents want and what they're asking for. And many of these people are actually afraid to stand up and say how they feel for the fear of being retaliated against or bullied. So I highly recommend that each of you, in your free time, begin attending neighborhood association meetings where you actually hear from the people and hear what the people in the community actually want and would like to see in their neighborhood. And you'll have a firsthand knowledge of exactly what I'm saying, but actually coming from the people as well. So I also look forward to seeing each of you within the neighborhood association meetings within East Tampa. So thank you.
Ms. Goodley, is there any questions from council? Councilman.
And it's going to go to legal first. Mr. Rep, tell me, what is the process or procedure when CACs continue to not have a quorum? Can the chair bring information to this body, to this board, to make decisions, or to try to foster some type of relationship or avenue? Because it seems to me that things can't get done, and I know about East Tampa, I know about a few others who just can't get quorums to get things moving. What is a process that we can do, or an avenue?
Sound to the legal department. The issue that you're going to have is that when you don't have a quorum, you're really not able to make any final decisions. Now, the members that are present, as we have today, if they want to bring to you issues that they're concerned with, anyone can do that. They can do that. The citizens can do that as well. But without a quorum, they can't give you a consensus of what the neighborhood is looking for, because their role as that organization is to find out what the neighborhood is, come to you with recommendations, and then you make the final decisions on how to make that forward. But anyone is going to, especially the chairman of that organization, could come here and give her or the consensus of the group that's there, but it's not a formal recommendation by the entire group. To do that, you have to have a quorum. Now, if they have a shortage, then there's a structural issue that you need to get more members on there. As you know, the East Tampa group is a little different than some of the others, is they bring their membership to you as a totality rather than individually. There's an issue that they have to deal with and you have to deal with as well. If you need more people on there, then it's up to you and them to get more people so that they do have a quorum. But they can't bring anything formal to you. They're certainly allowed to come before you and tell you what it is, what their issues are, without having it as a consensus.
I believe that board has about 13 member board. I think it's always been I think it's too large and may need to be looked to be downsized. That's something we need to consider. Ms. Gilley, I appreciate what you've been doing. I know you're fighting a lot of struggles out there, but you know, in any situation, any war, you've got to have people who are willing to fight. Some will agree and some will disagree. So I do appreciate the work you are doing. I understand when you talk about roadblocks, and Webster defines roadblocks as any obstacle to progress or advance. And I've been an employee of the city, and I understand certain communities, and I understand that because I've been in meetings where roadblocks have been placed. So I do understand about roadblocks. And I know there's some challenges in East Tampa, and I know there have been some roadblocks. So we've got to open those roads up for you. This board has to do that because there are roadblocks, many of them. And we have to make sure that the departments legally understand that we're in a crisis mode now. I have mostly all of the CRAs, gentlemen, all of them, except one. True Park's the only one I don't have. And that concerns me that I have one CRA, and I know that we've made some strides. I know we have. But it's not good enough for the length of time that we've been in existence. There have been some down years, and I understand that. But still, we should have had proper planning for when we got money to move on. We have over $3.8 million. To me, we should have a zero balance in that budget. We should have a zero balance. A zero balance. That money should not be lingering there for any length amount of time. And that's disgusting to me. Roadblocks. Gentlemen, I tell you, we have to stop these roadblocks. There are many there. I just believe that with anything, time changes things. We're in a new era now. People are understanding and eyes are opening. But I have to ask the Economic Development Director in reference to managers, rotation of managers. What is the procedure? What is the length of time? Is there a process in place that managers stay?
As of today, generally someone has been appointed to a certain district and remains there during their tenure at the city. There's been a feeling that their experience in getting to know the community actually is an advantage as opposed to doing a rotation. That is certainly something that we can discuss with the board.
And I don't want to single anyone out, but I know Mr. Johnson has done a great job. He's been there a long time. And I hate to hear on Saturday mornings that citizens that are ridiculing him, saying all kind of things about him. He's a friend of mine, and it's not right. And I don't like those type of things because he's a good man, he has a good heart, and he's been there a long time trying to do the right things. But on another note, I also serve the citizens of the district, and they have concerns. So I have to look at what do we do? And I'm looking at, and I'm really thinking hard, and I'm probably going to make a motion later on. I believe there's time that we rotate the managers of the CRA. Ideas are good. I travel to several of the CRAs, and when I hear what they're doing, what they're saying, sometimes I'm like, well, why are we not doing that? And I brought information back to the chair saying, maybe you need to look at this or look at that. Sometimes, we get stagnant sometimes, and we need to open the horizons. And I just feel bad for Mr. Johnson that he's just being beaten down over there, and it's not fair to him. But I think that we need to look at possibly a rotation of your managers. And I'm probably going to make that suggestion at the end of the motion, make a motion at the end. I think that's needed. And I believe that it will give the community a different perspective, a different feel, and it will give a different light on your managers as well. We don't need to keep people there for so long. Ideas change and people change. We do it. I was a police department. The chiefs come in sometimes. They rotate the majors. Every 4 or 5 years they come in. We're gonna get a new sense of feel. But I also want to talk to you as well, because I want to know that you, as the leader, I need to know, and I'm going to probably make a motion about this too, sir, later on, about an aggressive plan from you in your office of moving that at CRA. I think leadership, it starts from the top. And I don't believe it has been an aggressive attack.
Councilman Goods, I don't mean to interrupt, and your zeal for this. However, this question is directed to Ms. Goodley. Are we not working on a workshop later? Mr. McDonough?
Okay.
Can that be brought up during the
Yes,
workshop?
sir, yes, sir, I'll do that later, sir.
Okay. Councilman Vieira.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Mr. Chair. To go to Councilman Good's point, and you know what, I'll address that later. Just it's the rotation issue is something I would love to hear more about, without a doubt. I think that reflects a zeal to the board, et cetera. And I'd like to hear the ramifications of that. I think that's certainly a interesting, innovative idea. So I'd really love to hear the ramifications of that. Good, I think there could be a lot of good, and I'd love to hear the bad if there are. But Ms. Goodley, to get to your remarks, thank you very much again for being here today. You know, when I heard your remarks, I thought about the saying, which is you got to strike while the iron's hot, so to speak. And right now, for me, the iron is hot for our neighborhoods. East Tampa, North Tampa, West Tampa, all of our neighborhoods, especially at-risk neighborhoods that have been historically ignored. We're in the middle of what appears to be a good economy. We have unemployment at 3.5% nationally. We have what appears to be record roaring growth. But we all know that these things don't last forever. We are in the middle of one of the longest historic expansions within our country economically, and we know that all things don't last forever. And where I come from, when the economy is going well and when things are roaring, you take a look at neighborhoods that are traditionally ignored. Why? Because especially for local governments, you know that when that recession happens, and we know it's going to happen, we know that's going to happen, you cut back. You cut back historically. I'm not saying that's right, but that's just something that happens. So when I look at right now what we're doing as a city, not just as a CRA, but also wearing our city council hats, I want us to acknowledge that. When I look at our past investments that we made in 2017 for the fiscal year 2018 budget, we made some very aggressive improvements in our neighborhoods. I want to continue to pull that forward so that we can strike while the iron's hot. And I know you have the commitment from myself and from everybody here on this council to really take a special, unique look at all of our neighborhoods, including and especially East Tampa. Your remarks on the historical nature of East Tampa and explaining why we're here, what led us to be that we're here, is not just a history lesson, but I think it also gives rise to a duty from elected officials who know our history and who act based on that history. And so I hope that we strike while the iron's hot on that issue. So thank you.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Some good thoughts this morning from the board members. Good morning, Ms. Goodley.
Good morning.
So I was wondering, one of the things that as council members and as CRA members we've been talking about quite a bit the last couple of months is affordable housing, attainable housing, workforce housing, whatever term of art we want to use. And you mentioned it during your presentation. And I'm just wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about the direction that the CAC wants to head and what sort of additional help you could use from us to help with that. I don't want to point any fingers in regard to legal, but you mentioned legal. Is that also related to the affordable housing issue? Just a couple of questions along those lines.
I'm not 1,000% if it's in with legal. I believe it is for our housing program. What we decided to create was another, I guess, workshop classes that you can attend to obtain extra funding. I don't want to say down payment assistance because you can use it, you know, it's just, you could use it for down payment assistance, but it's to basically pay down the mortgage. And the city right now offers $14,999. So our thought was to do $15,000 so that we could bring $30,000 to the table, especially with the property values that are increasing. But of course, that's the purpose of the CRA. The purpose of the CRA is to increase property values, to increase the area, to get rid of the blight. So, I mean, we're actually doing what we're supposed to be doing. But in the meantime, we understand that it makes it a little harder for everyone to be able to purchase a home. So creating a down payment assistance program that we could help to pay down those mortgages is what we came up with. But also within our program, we wanted to make it more holistic so that we're actually counseling people about how to save money, how to get in the home, what happens once you're in there. And then we have post-counseling afterwards, even after you purchase the home, because some of the pushback that we heard was that people sitting for the one-day class ended up in foreclosure. And so the whole idea is to eliminate as many people as possible who are actually going to go to foreclosure.
So, in regard to those programs, are you working with the nonprofits? Do you anticipate hiring the nonprofits to help you with the educational, component of that, or is that something y'all are doing in-house?
We're working with the city, the housing department, to put on those classes. Once the program is approved through legal, then the housing department will help us in facilitating it.
Okay. And what can we do to help you with any of that you
Help us
just
get
were
it from
talking
legal
about?
quicker?
I'm sorry?
Help us get it from legal a little bit quicker so that we can move on to the next program and establish and just continually put different programs out. I know we haven't gone forward with trying to create any additional because the ones that we have started, we haven't really received back yet. So if we could just have a quicker turnaround, we could start pumping out programs for the area a little bit faster.
Well, Mr. Torito has just rejoined us. He has many, many years' experience as a CRA attorney, and he'll bring that to this chair that he's sitting in, and hopefully can help expedite some of those issues.
Councilman Maniscalco.
Thank you very much. My grandfather bought his first home in this country with a $100 down payment in 1965 on 48th Street in Highland Pines neighborhood. And the house is still there, the neighborhood is still there. 54 years later, it looks the same with the exception of there's more modern cars in the driveway. And what I'm trying to say is East Tampa is what I call the land that time forgot. Because once you go east of the interstate, once you leave the boundaries of District 6 and go into 5, there's so much that looks the same. Middle class America is almost non-existent there. There was a new Walmart built and opened on Hillsborough a couple years ago, but as you mentioned, a grocery store won't come in. Fresh food beyond a Walmart or a Sandwall is not available to this community. You don't have middle class restaurants. Where's the Applebee's, the Chili's, whatever it is. But people ignore east of that interstate to the city limit. Everything happens in West Tampa and District 6, West Shore, downtown. Somebody told me 9 years ago at a meeting, they said, what did they tell me? They said, all the money goes to Ybor City when it goes into District 5. All the historic preservation focused on Ybor City, but there's beautiful neighborhoods beyond that. I drive through there all the time, and again, it's the land that time forgot. It's frozen in time. And why 54 years after my grandfather bought that house has nothing really changed? You go down Hillsborough, you go down Martin Luther King, and there's so much that's still there as it looked like 50 years ago. I don't know if we've had a mayor that's ever focused on that. You can go back to Nick Nucio, you can go back to race relations in the 1960s and everything, but beyond that, what has local government done for the African American community? A park here, a park there, but where's the real economic development and opportunity? Except a Family Dollar and a Dollar Tree.
Which we're good with.
People deserve more, people deserve better. We're in this together as a community and as a family. It's not just all the money goes to South Tampa, all the money goes to New Tampa, West Tampa, whatever. Don't forget this large parcel. Look at the CRA in East Tampa, the largest in the state, I believe. Yet, it's suffering the most. Why? With the amount of money that it'll generate, why isn't that money? As Councilman Good said, that balance should be zero. Spend that money, invest it in the community. Offer opportunities for kids coming out of high school to have some kind of employment. Learn a trade, whatnot. But I think it's a new council and a sympathetic board and an understanding board. I was on the campaign trail with everybody and I heard what they said, from affordable housing to job creation to youth development. Everything was said, but we have to implement it. And we have to implement it in the neighborhoods that need it. Whatever it takes. We should have the mayor going out there talking to corporations, whether it's Winn-Dixie or Publix or whomever. Say, you need to invest in this area. This is the next great thing. Mayor Buckhorn promoted downtown so much. 10 years ago downtown, I'll tell you that, after 5 o'clock, I had nothing to do. Now everybody wants to come down here. Everybody goes to Armature Works and the Riverwalk and whatnot. Focus on East Tampa. If we don't market it, I'm talking about us from a leadership standpoint, and say, look, beautiful historic neighborhood. Seminole Heights, 15 years ago, was not Seminole Heights as it was today. Now, the home values, the property values are unbelievable. And everybody wants to go there. They call it the new Hyde Park, the new South Tampa. But East Tampa deserves that. you've been ignored for so long. Like I said, my grandfather bought that house in 1965. And what has changed? Not much, other than he moved out in 1972 and went to West Tampa. But y'all deserve more, and you deserve more from us as a board and the administration. And we really need to promote, focus, market that area as, you know, a place that people want to invest in. So that's it. And I know we have the workshop later, so we'll talk more about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Maniscalco, and I'll add one thing to that. Medical and health care is much needed in East Tampa. For a woman to have to get on a bus to take her children elsewhere to get medical or health care is unforeseen. It's inexcusable. Excuse me. We need more medical and health facilities in East Tampa. Councilman Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for coming today. And you mentioned neighborhoods that we should go to. Hopefully my legislative aide is listening. I'll have him call you, please. I'll go to any neighborhood you think I should go to. And very interested in.
You could start with, for the neighborhoods that are within the CRA, they're listed on our newsletter at the very bottom. I can't promise that all that information is accurate, but the city should keep an accurate list of neighborhood associations and
if you could ask the neighborhood association, put us on their email list too. But I'll get my aide to put them on my calendar, and I'll try to attend as many as I can. It's not my district, but I'm interested in the entire city. And just to echo a bit of what one of my colleagues said, we have an interest here on this board for the whole city, and in particular East Tampa. And I can tell you throughout the city, every place except downtown has felt ignored for the last 8 years. But I know the last 8 years in particular have been really difficult for East Tampa and the African American community, of which there's a sizable number of African Americans in my district in South Tampa. And we have to we have to change that. You talked about roadblocks. Many people have come up before us and talked about how they've been treated with disrespect, how they've been ignored, and we're trying to change that culture. We on City Council want to change that. The new mayor wants to change it. She's changing staff and changing culture quickly. It's not catching up with the reality of what maybe everybody's experiencing. But I would encourage you, if we don't have time now, that you that maybe you let us know what the roadblocks are specifically that you're facing and what the nature of them are. You could let us know individually or send us a memo, and we'll try to fix them. We'll get our legislative aides to work through staff to try to fix those things. The next thing, though, more importantly, I've looked through, I'm new only here a couple months, but I've looked through as many documents as I've been given, I think, on CRAs. I haven't seen a plan for East Tampa, and what I mean is an economic plan. As I understand it from I'm not a lawyer, but I think the 1969 enabling law for CRAs, the intent was that they would try to alleviate blight, poverty, and also provide housing. But that has to be integrated into an economic plan. What I often see when we get reports is a list of kind of what looks like ad hoc things that money is spent on, and then also, and this is for all CRAs, not just yours, but we see an ad hoc list of things that money is spent on, and then we see a list of things happening in those districts that may or may not be at all related to any of the money that's being spent. I wonder, I'll ask this question later for the other CRAs, but is there an integrated economic development plan? Tampa forever and Florida forever has focused on real estate development instead of economic development, and real estate development is only a small part of economic development, as you know. Is there an economic development plan, or what can we do to create one?
We have a strategic action plan. It was developed in 2009, so we were looking to put out an RFP to update that, and we just got back from legal the RFP, so that should go out shortly. But again, that was a document, we approved that last year, and so it's not here to throw shade, but if we're going to truly move East Tampa forward, we can't go 6, 7, 8 months trying to get back, is this program viable and can we actually put it forward?
How long did it take you to hear back on the RFP?
That was last year, so I mean.
You submitted that illegal and heard back a year later, is that?
Well, I mean, I don't know exactly the date that it was submitted because the manager submits it, but we voted and approved last year for the update of the strategic action plan, and we just approved the RFP at this meeting this month.
Yeah, I think it's important for the later workshop, whether we continue to outsource legal and other services or whether we bring it in-house to the CRA. That's all I have. Thank you. Look forward to talking to you more.
Councilman Goods.
Mr. Gilly, I need you to take this message back to your CSC board. I was at a meeting yesterday of the Jazzy Seniors at Reagan Park, which is a huge group of our seniors. My mother belongs to the group and several people. They had several questions for the mayor, but the bulk of their questions were about that multicultural center. And I urge you to take that back to your board. I think your board needs to look at maybe coming up or hiring an outside source person to look at what the feasibility of that of building that structure, looking at the neighborhoods, getting input. And I think your board needs to look at that because the community wants that. That's their interest. East Tampa has no wow. When you go other places, people can say, "Oh wow," there's no wow in East Tampa. Also, I received a call. I see Ms. Burton here in the audience. I received a call from her. I think she attended the meeting as a guest or whatever, and we talked about the tree lighting in East Tampa. And I want you to know that a lot of people don't like going to the police station. And I know years past when the Christmas tree was enacted, it's on the south side of the police department building. Well, there's no traffic, so people can really see a Christmas tree. So no one can even see a tree because it's on still on a back-end street. You know, and there have been suggestions about placing a lighted tree at a particular park on Email King. We need to look at that because I believe that's a wow for our community. So I'm just throwing things that the community is saying. Go ahead.
Okay, well, we heard back in our meeting about the tree, and that's part of when I mentioned without the sarcasm or the condescending. So the idea, I mean, whether if it's a great idea or not, whether it works or not, we're fleshing out ideas, and that's the whole idea. That's what we need. We need to get some ideas out here how we can actually grow the area. And the idea was to light a tree in the Robert Cole Park within the retention pond, but we made a little park out of it. And what came back was of course liability, but will people jump in the water trying to touch the tree and things like that? And I mean, I'm from a small town in South Carolina, 40,000 people, and we put Christmas trees at Swan Lake in the water every year. And if 40,000 people can figure out how to put a tree in a pond, then how in the world can this city not do the same thing? I mean, if it's not feasible and just it costs too much money, then say that. But to come back and say, we're going to be stupid enough that we're going to jump in the water now, we're going to try to swim out to the tree, do we got to put barriers around the park now to keep people from going to the tree? That's very condescending.
Question is, can Santa Claus swim?
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Ms. Goodley, thank you for the hard work that you do for the CRA. You've been chair for a year now, a year and a half?
Not quite a year. I came in mid-October.
Okay, and I have been to your meetings,
Yes.
and they are great, and both during the campaign and after I was elected. I've seen other council members at your meetings, and I've seen other council members at different CRA meetings. You had talked, and Councilman Good said times are changing, and you just talked briefly about your strategic action plan. Is there any thoughts of changing that or redoing that in the near future?
Well, the RFP's out now, so we're trying to get a company that will, come on board to actually help with updating.
Are the boards and committees going to be helpful with that and say what the community actually wants for that strategic action plan?
Well, I hope so.
I hope so too. Do you know what the cost of that is going to be?
I do not.
Okay, because Joe Robinson is out there giving us thumbs up, and I know that West Tampa has just completed theirs about 6 months ago. I know from experience that it's somewhere between $40,000, $50,000, maybe even higher. Can you briefly, since some of our board members have never been to a CRA meeting, can you briefly tell us how an idea or a project or a concept comes to fruition? And I'll lead you on this, even though I shouldn't. you have the community comes in,
Right,
talks to the committees.
right. So we have the partnership meeting where people can voice any concerns, anything that they like to see within the community. We also have committees that meet where the community is also able to go to the committee meetings where they also can address and voice concerns. We then take that information at the CAC meeting and we discuss it and vote on this is how we're going to proceed with implementing, correcting, whatever we need to do. And then that's when it's presented to ultimately you, the CRA board.
Well, it's presented to the board,
Yes.
not this board, your board,
Well, yes, we, the CAC, we approve it, and then once we approve it, then it's presented to you.
and then it goes into your budget for next year, and then it's brought before us.
Yes,
But ultimately, it starts with the community.
correct.
Fantastic. And you've had 3.5 million?
We had 2.98 last year, and going into 2020, I believe we're at 3.9 million, and we have a rollover of about 1.6 million, I believe.
So, I would hope that the community would come out and say, this is what we want. And your committees and your board would come to us and say, we got 3.9 mil.
Right.
Let's use this, let's do this.
Right. So we're open to, of course, spending of money, but I do want to put it out here that we do not want to spend our money on things that the city should be doing for East Tampa. So we should use our money to supplement what the city is already doing. And so I've noticed that a lot of times we are spending our money doing things that the city should be doing. So I want to be able to supplement and add jobs, to add beautification to the area. I want to be able to spend the money to do that instead of spending the money to pave streets and cut tree limbs and things like that, because that's what the city should be doing.
How much have you, has your CRA spent on facade grants this year?
This year's
Just
not
rough ballpark.
not much. I think we have maybe 2 applications and maybe another, maybe 3, but we haven't spent much.
In your budget, how much do you have set aside for facade grants? And I know Bob McDonough is coming up, but that's something we can discuss later.
I believe we might have about,
That's how many you've done, and that's how much you've spent.
that's in total.
Yes.
Yes, so in total, we've done 25, but this fiscal year, I think we have 2 that we have pending right now, possibly 3.
How many facade grant requests do you get? Or have you gotten this year, in this term? Facade grant
Maybe.
requests, how many have you gotten?
I want to say maybe 3 or 4. It hasn't been much.
And the public knows it's available?
Right.
Okay.
But many of the businesses that we have thrive on blight. So they're not interested in correcting the blight because that's what they thrive on. So that's what we have to work on as far as solving that problem. And those same businesses have code issues, they have everything going on. But again, they're still operable and they're still making money. And they're not interested in making it look better, even with free money.
Even with free money. That's a contradiction. Ms. Goodley, congratulations to you and your board. You guys have done an outstanding job.
Thank you.
Mr. Dingfelder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good thoughts there. You jumped on something that's bothered me over the years, and I'm glad that you mentioned it. And I think we need to be very, very cognizant of it, especially our last item is item 8 in regard to budget. But since you're standing here, I want to mention it now. In regard to the fact that the CRA money should just be supplementing what the city should do overall. And you gave examples of trimming limbs, paving streets. Recently, we've pointed out some of those items to staff as well. So when we go into the budget, proposed budget for next year, I think we all need to be very cognizant of that and make sure that we are doing exactly what you said. That we're supplementing, that we're improving over and above what the city should already be doing, and keep very aware of that. And frankly, I'm going to ask you, I assume you're going to keep this post for the next year, I'm going to ask you, when you see those types of items, to make us directly aware of it, okay? And to point that out. So hopefully we can do something about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Goodley, as it relates to the facade grant, I know we talked about free money and people aren't applying, but I also look at criteria when I look at money. Do you believe the criteria is too stringent for those who may want it but can't get it because they feel they won't qualify, or are the guidelines too high? Do we need to look at that to maybe help?
I don't think so. There's not a minimum, so if you had a project that was $200, you could put in for $100 and you pay $100, but you have to have a proposed project, a permanent project that you've already started. And maybe that's the issue, is some people don't have permitted projects, but it's not, personally, I don't think it's too strenuous, but I just think many of them are not interested in trying to get the money because they're not interested in actually in getting rid of the blight.
And the reason I say that, I've heard that portion, but I also heard this side of the coin too, saying, I don't know how to do that, or who can help me with that. So I don't know if it's something that we can look in the future to possibly having a training for those who want to come in to apply, making sure they have the right tools to be able to get this money. A lot of times people get real fearful of information sometimes that they can't understand what the verbiage is. A lot of times I notice in the city we use a lot of acronyms, and sometimes I have to ask staff, what is that? What does that mean? So we have to look at that as well. And to Mr. Dingfeld's point about city funds, as you know, I voted down the road proposal because I felt the city should be doing a lot of that, and I voted no on that the last time when I was on the CAC board. So I understand Mr. Dingfeld is going with that.
Councilman Carlson.
I'm sorry to reopen all this. So I don't know if your board has a official opinion on this, but could I just ask you as an individual with your experience, if you could decide where $50,000 or $100,000 could be spent in East Tampa, do you think a facade grant is the highest and best use of that money, or do you think there are more important things that it could be spent on?
I'd say 6 in one hand and half a dozen in the other, because the facade grants help change aesthetically how the area looks, which is what we ultimately have to do if we're going to bring about economic development, the grocery store, commercial development. So it's important because we do need to do that, but at the same time, there are other pressing issues and concerns with helping small businesses get going, help them develop. So it kind of goes hand in hand. There's so many, unfortunately, there's so many issues and concerns that we have that it's hard to just address one and expect change. You have to address 5 or 6 to actually see some change.
Any other further questions? Councilman Vieira.
And I wanted to just jump on the facade grant issue that, you know, I one of my constituents is a gentleman named Matt Huire, Juare, over in Forest Hills, who just opened up the Bay Cannon Beer Company over in West Tampa. I know Mr. Robinson was speaking about that, I believe it was last week. And it's something that he found very useful in terms of, you know, making the connection between his aspiration to open up a business and actually opening up that business. And I believe, if I recall, the number was $17,500 he received from the facade grant. So in that instance, for Old West Tampa, he saw a real improvement. So, you know, the facade grant program is something that, when properly done, I support for neighborhoods like that, for example. And I think that's a good example of it improving a neighborhood.
Any last questions for Ms. Goodley? Ms. Goodley, again, thank you for your hard work and your dedication to East Tampa. I must point out that these facade grants are matching grants. They are not just monies given away. And the project has to be approved. All the monies have to be accounted for.
Right.
So it's just not a, here's money.
Correct. If I could add to
Please.
now that I'm thinking, it can be, I suppose, a roadblock because it is matching funds, and so you do have to have those funds. And again, I started the presentation off with a little history, and we know that, unfortunately, it's more difficult for minorities to receive loans, and have access to capital. So with that being said, it might be more difficult for them to put their hands on the funds in order to receive the facade grant. So there's possibly some ways, other things that we could think of. We do have the funds that we could implement to try to close the gap, try to help some of the businesses that actually want help, not the ones thriving on blight, but the ones who want help and actually would like to change the look in the community. So we could possibly look into doing something along those lines, because that is a concern.
Fantastic. Do you have a planning, infrastructure, and economic development committee?
We have an economic development committee, yes.
Fantastic. Why don't you have them look into it, come up with some ideas, come before us. We have legal here. We have our CRA board here. Maybe we can discuss an option.
Can we get that back in probably a month and a half if we come up with a program?
At your convenience, make sure that it's put on the agenda in enough time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goodley. Okay, let's go to item number 2, agenda item number 2.
Good morning, Board. Bob McDonough. I had sent each of you an email earlier in the week, or I guess it was last week, concerning the Cross Bay Ferry. The city of St. Petersburg had made a request of the city to re-engage with them. And this has been a share between the city of Tampa, Hillsborough County, the city of St. Petersburg, and Pinellas County. And so they have come forward again, and it has been historically funded by the CRAs. Historically, it had been landing in the Channel District. It was being by the aquarium, and so it was the Channel District CRA who had funded it. They're looking right now at potentially landing it at the convention center, so it would be funded, if funded, by the downtown CRA. The CRA manager, Rob Rosner, has presented it to both of his boards, and both of those boards were supportive. They're asking for $150,000. Last year, it handled 52,000 passengers. It runs from November through April. Yes, sir?
Any questions on the possibility of the ferry and funding the ferry? Mr. Goods.
I did receive a call from Mayor Kreisman about that issue. And I had to research where the funding came from, and I was adamant if the funding came out of any point of general fund, that I would not be in support of that at all. Because I have other issues in my district that's more important that we're pulling money out of the general fund for a ferry. To me, I think it's a tourist attraction. I don't see a lot of people in certain areas using that ferry. But if the downtown CRA, which is funded, if their board is agreeable to that, it's their money in their tax base. And if they're agreeable to that, I can support it. But if they're not agreeable to that, I can't support that. But I believe they agreed to it last time. I don't know if we will this time, but I want to make sure that, for me, I wouldn't support any money coming from anywhere else.
Councilman Miranda.
Thank you, and I apologize for having you speaking at all. I have a real bad sore throat. However, when you talk about the ferry, you go back and look at the ferry where it came from. It came from a place in Salem, Massachusetts. It's the same ferry that's there that comes here during the off-season for them. They don't have too many ferries when it's snow. And you can't go up and down the transportation from Salem to Boston. If I remember, this goes back to 2010. The ferry cost for a round-trip ticket in Salem, and again, don't quote me on this, was $44. If you lived in the county, it was $19. And if you lived in the city of Salem, it was $17. And this, you can check this in the Salem newspaper. The reason it was $17 for the city, guess what? It was subsidizing the ferry $700,000 a year. So I have never voted for the ferry, no offense to anyone who has. But it went from $10 at first, and you got a rebate check of $30,000. And I asked the city, what an investment. You gave up $350,000, you got back 30. You're really gonna make money. And I'm just now a throwaway, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, I just feel that at first it was $10, then it was $8. Why the difference? I'll tell you why the difference. The Department of Transportation funded the other portion of the city that the city didn't want to fund, but the county's involved. So they've had it their way. To me, it was a tourist thing, or if somebody wants to get in a ferry, go from here to St. Pete and back for $10 or $8, you know, it's better than going getting a hot dog and a hamburger somewhere else where you can say, you know what, look at this beautiful thing. I would have spent that, but I ate at the house, so now I can go to the ferry. That's how it is. Let's be realistic about it. So in all those things, is it a public use for everybody? Oh, they're going to tell you it is. And I'm going to say not so. It's tourists when the tourists are here. And I admire Mayor Crashman. I don't want his baseball team. I'm not going to build the stadium, or my vote is not to build the stadium. And I've been consistent since September of 2006. And that contract is coming back on the other big stadium. And I'm not going to go into the stadium because I'll get sick again. My whole body will get sick, not my throat. So what I'm saying is just not, I can't speak for the others, just for myself. I would never support a public transportation mode that is not a public transportation mode. That's not public transportation. You want to put streetcars in, you want to put where it goes from one neighborhood to another to move connectivity and move people around, I vote for it. I've said it here to the Department of Transportation. Why have we failed? I'll tell you why we failed. Because every time you have an expressway and you have it full of capacity, the day after it's constructed, you add another lane. So if it's a failure, why do you keep increasing the lanes? Make the lines longer, and guess what? Sooner or later, you're going to have a train or rail or something. But you can't continue doing that. And I'm not talking to you, Mr. McDonald. Please don't take it personally. But it's just, these ideas are, you know, pie in the sky, which is fine for some if you can go to the sky and get the pie. But there are no crumbs left. If we have put, this city has put $500,000 into that ferry, if I recall. Twice that we did it. Between the two sums, I haven't finished yet, sir. Mm-hmm. Between what we gave last time was $150,000, am I correct?
Correct.
What did we give the first time?
$150,000.
Only $150,000?
Correct.
And $150,000?
Correct.
$300,000. You could have
Correct.
built 2 houses and a half for somebody to have a house to live. Instead of having people having joyrides, having a couple of beers and enjoying downtown St. Pete, downtown Tampa. That's fine. They can do that on their own. They can rent a boat. You can rent a boat for less than you can go in the ferry. If the ferry sooner or later is going to charge you the going rate. And if you don't get the going rate, some government is going to have to subsidize it. It ain't going to be me. That's it. Thank you.
Councilman Dinko.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm looking at page 2 on the budget in item 8, in regard to the downtown budget. And I assume, Bob, you're going to probably, by the time this comes back to us, assuming that council supports the ferry, you would amend this budget to include that. But I look at some of the other things that the downtown CRA has in the past and proposed in the future been doing and supporting. For example, the streetcar system, $150,000 for the streetcar system. Previously, we've supplemented the on-demand shuttle project to the tune of a couple $100,000. We've done a master infrastructure for millions of dollars over there in the Mr. Vinnick's project over there by the thing. Prior council agreed to that. This next budget speaks to $5 million of capital improvement and $4 million of bond payments to the convention center. So anyway, so I think my point is the downtown district is different than the East Tampa district or the West Tampa district. East Tampa, West Tampa are truly blighted in areas. Certain parts of them are blighted areas, and those are the kind of areas that I think we need to do affordable housing, and we need to do workforce training and, those types of things. But in downtown, it's a different animal. And even though it has a CRA hat, it is a different animal. I think we all talk about multimodal. The multimodal is important to this community, that we can't just continue to ride in cars for a variety of reasons, that we've got to develop better bus system, that hopefully we're going to have some sort of train system. And we're on the bay, we should have a ferry system. I think we all like history, and I just finished reading a book on the Brooklyn Bridge. Okay, prior to the building of the Brooklyn Bridge, everybody had to ride the ferry across the East River to get from Brooklyn over to Manhattan. Then they built the Brooklyn Bridge, and all the ferries by 1942 went out of business because you could just as easily get in a streetcar and go across the various bridges and or drive your car. Guess what now? Now it's all snarled up there, and the last thing you want to do is get in a car and try and drive across any of those bridges. So guess what? The ferries have come back. I talked to Mayor Kreisman as well, but I don't even know that I needed to. I think that the ferries are part of the multimodal need for the Bay Area. I'm thrilled that government, is also looking into ferries to get the McDill folks across the bay in like 18 minutes instead of the 60 or 90-minute drive that many of them are doing. And they're going to be doing that on ferries, zipping across the bay. And that's good for everybody. So I totally support the ferry subsidy coming, especially as Mr. Goods mentioned, it's not coming out of the general fund. It's not coming out of East Tampa or West Tampa. It's coming out of the downtown fund. And I'll totally support it. And thank you for bringing it, Bob. And I assume that the mayor supports it.
I believe that, again, because it's a CRA issue, she's looking to the CRA board, but she has been supportive of Mayor Kreisman's efforts, yes.
Yeah, I'm not looking for her permission, but I just was wondering if she's supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Vieira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, I agree with many of my colleagues in a distinction between general budget funds and CRA dollars. I'll tell you, if this was coming up in the general City of Tampa budget, I would not support it, because I don't think that as presented, as done presently, that this is something that is really for the use presently for the entire City of Tampa. As presently done. However, since it's relegated essentially to CRA dollars from downtown, I think that's a critical distinction that would lead me to support it. I do believe in the idea that we do need diverse modes of transportation here within our city, within our community. This can be one of them, but I think that with this level of investment in its limited duration, this doesn't really make the large citywide dent that I would like to see with these kind of dollars. If it were to be coming from the general budget, CRA, for the board to support it, that's a very reasonable decision on their end. That's well within their discretion, and I think it's reasonable to agree with that and support it, and so I'll be supporting it, but with those very strong qualifications.
Councilman Carlson.
I've spoken to Mayor Kreisman and others also about this, and the way I understand this is the third year of beta test of this new concept for new coming back concept of transportation. And the second year, I think the attendance was double or so the first year. And right now it is mostly nighttime or entertainment or tourists who are going on it. But the idea is to get the companies interested and get people interested in taking this as a mode of transportation. And then for it to work the way we all want it to work, they need two boats that would go at least 1 hour headways back and forth, because there's a great demand from people who want to commute. There are lots of people who live in St. Pete and work in Tampa, and people who live in Tampa and work in St. Pete. They would like to skip the bridges and take the ferries back and forth, but we've got to get people to start using this as a mode of transportation in some form first, and this is the cheapest way to get to beta test it. So in the long run, I'd like to see what the eventual proposal is, but in the short run, it seems like a good idea to at least continue to test this as an idea.
Any other questions or statements?
Does Mr. McDonough need a motion or?
I do, sir, please.
I would move that staff include this as our budget in the downtown budget assuming that the CAC is on board as well,
They have.
include the 150,000 in this next year's budget for the ferry.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Dingfelder, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion to approve the funding for the CRA, for the ferry and the CRA budget passed with Miranda voting no
And specifically in the downtown budget.
in the downtown budget.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or any other statements?
Chairman,
Mr.
so
McDonough.
item number 3 is a duplicate of the workshop number 7, and I ask that that item be moved to number 7 because it's basically the same subject.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Dingfelder, seconded by Councilman Goods. All in favor, say aye. All opposed?
I had a couple of quick questions on item number 2, not related to the ferry.
Yes, sir?
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the future, Bob, can we number these pages so that way I can get everybody on board with page numbers? But anyway, in regard to the Encore Central Park CRA,
Yes, sir.
somebody was asking me the other day. They said there's a new building being proposed in the Central Park area,
That's
and that's great. They asked me if that building, if the rezoning and the PD for that building would be coming to council. And I said I wasn't sure because I know that certain high-rises in the Central Business District now get staff review but don't necessarily come to council. And I just wasn't, I wanted some clarification on that in regard to the Central Park area.
Rezonings always come back to council, but on this particular building, it's a residential building, mixed-use, mixed-income residential building, and I believe that in the PD it was already assumed. It's in the PD. There are a couple other lots that they're looking at different uses that would require a rezoning, and that would, of course, come back to council.
So they'd be amending their sort of master PD?
Correct.
Okay, but you don't, this next one that's coming along, your feeling is it's probably not going to come to council?
It was part of the original plan, and it was plotted as a residential building, again, and that's what this is. They have been marketing some commercial lots, and there has been interest in that, and if there's a change in use with those, then that certainly would come back to council.
I know the folks I was talking to expressed some concern that the new building in the Central Park area, and I know we have limited control once we approve a PD, but is sort of monolithic in terms of just being residential and not being mixed use, not taking advantage of the ground floor opportunities, perhaps over toward Nebraska, that sort of thing. Do we have any input on that?
They're all required to have activity on the ground level.
Are they?
They have to comply with our standards, yes.
Okay, so that's part of our existing standard?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. And, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of follow-up. In regard to the downtown CRA, down at the bottom, it says, work with R.R. Simmons on convention center improvements, construction of concessions, et cetera. Is it anticipated, or even more than that, is the downtown CRA paying for the convention center improvements?
They have. They have gotten matching money from the tourist development tax dollars and have spent money on improvements in the convention center. If you recall, the original intent of the downtown CRA was to fund the convention center. That was the whole reason it was brought about.
Right.
And so they have retired the bonds. The building is almost 30 years old, and so the CRA has stepped in to do some of the improvements for that building. Again, with matching dollars that are raised by the hotels with the tourist development tax dollars.
You said they retired the bond. I thought I saw in the budget an additional $4 million for next year.
That's a loan. That's a loan for improvements. The tourist development tax dollars are being meted out at $2 million a year. In order to do a large capital project, the CRA went out and borrowed $20 million. And it's a 5-year loan at 1.38%. and the county pays us back $1 million every 6 months with tourist development tax dollars to retire that loan.
And so the county's contributing and the CRA is contributing?
Correct. Matching dollars.
Annually?
That's correct.
Okay. And when was that done?
2 years ago.
And the obligation lasts for how long?
It was a 5-year loan.
All right, well, thanks for clarifying that. I thought they had re-upped the entire bond again.
No.
I'm glad they didn't.
No.
In regard to, and this my question relates to all the, well, not all the CRAs, but East Tampa, West Tampa, perhaps Ybor City, affordable housing. We know that the city struggles in regard to finding adequate funds to really boost affordable housing, attainable housing, workforce housing in our community. I know personally I'd like to see those 3 CRAs at a minimum really take a big push ahead in the affordable housing and not just building or buying new affordable housing, but also repairing the housing that we have. I've spoken with some of your managers, and it appears that there is a direction, some progress in that direction. But I just hope that, and maybe if you want a motion in that regard, we can give you one, but I just hope that it becomes a bigger priority for those 3 districts.
Again, this is a relatively new move for each of the CACs, and I think that each of those communities are saying that, yeah, they recognize it, it's important. But it's something new, and it's difficult. I think the comfort level has to grow. Again, matching themselves with not-for-profit partners like Rebuilding Tampa Bay or Habitat for Humanity. I know Habitat has been visiting with each of the CRAs, and I think you'll hear from each of the managers. The process I decided to do today when we're talking about the budget is to have each of the managers for the CRAs come up and talk about their specific areas.
Great.
Because they've had direct conversations with their boards, and so they can talk about that specific
Okay, so we can get to it toward the end of the meeting. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Councilman Goode.
Again, I travel the circuit every day because I live in East Tampa, so people see me in the grocery store, the street light, and stop my car and so forth. Perry Harvey Park has come up several times. He's my old fraternity brother, first city councilman, African American here. People are concerned that when that park was built, that it isn't getting the traffic it should get because the amenities aren't there in the park. There should be a band shell so people can have concerts, people can do different things in the park, and it's like dormant. And I don't know, I believe, is that the Central Park CRA?
West Tampa.
That's the Perry Harvey Park?
Oh, I'm sorry, Perry Harvey, excuse me. I thought we were talking, yes.
Central Park?
It is, Central Park.
So I need that message to be taken back to that CAC board, that the community has been stopping me in my car, they're talking about those issues, and we need to look at that park in particular. Now, as it relates to Kid Mason, I think Kid Mason is in the downtown CRA.
Correct.
Well, downtown is flourishing, and downtown has a lot of money. And Kid Mason has rats in the building. Staff is cleaning it up in the mornings. The building is dilapidated. It needs to be torn down, rebuilt, or needs some serious rehab. And I need the downtown CRA, CEC board, to take a look at it if it's in their CRA, because it needs some work. I've been by there. It is one of the oldest centers. It is a monumental center because it was on Central Avenue, and we need to look at that.
You had given that direction, and Rob Rosner has reached out to the Parks Department to find out what plans they had to make sure that we weren't going to jump in the middle of something that they already did, but we can coordinate our efforts. So
thank you, sir.
That direction was listened to and followed.
Thank you, sir.
Can we have a date on that?
I'll have a report for you next month.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Councilman Goode, are you finished? Okay, any other questions? Let's go to agenda item number 5. I'm sorry, facade discussion, please give me
Excuse me, one more, sorry.
Jumping ahead of myself.
This is a quick summary of the facade grant program, exactly how many facade grants have been given, the amount of monies distributed, and the private sector contribution towards that. Again, as was spoken, the way it's currently structured right now is there has to be an equal match for that. And I've got some fairly dramatic photos from each of the districts that can highlight the changes that have been wrought. And I think one of the things that's important in some of the communities is the fact that we're saying some historic structures, which is to a lot of people very important. And well, I thought I had some pictures for you. But I'll give you an example. You're being asked about one today, which comes up later in the agenda. And again, it's in Ybor, and it's the Ritz Theater. And bringing back the Ritz sign. Again, historic district, historic touches. I've got to say that this really has been one of our most popular projects, the facade grant program. And I think that if you drive through several of those communities, you can see very distinct changes that have been wrought by that program. There are specific rules. We have a third-party vendor that helps us to make sure that the budgets are accurate, that the work is done. There is a lien that's placed on the property for 5 years to make sure that the property is maintained. There have been questions about, well, you know what, somebody wants to refinance or something. We have taken second positions to allow people to refinance, leaving the lien in place, but again, to ensure that that investment is protected and the person who's done those improvements keep the building up. And what it does is it helps, it improves the visual interest in the community, but it also increases the property values, which is part of the direction for a CRA, to create value in a community. Now, are there some specific questions that I could answer about the program or concerns that need to be addressed?
Councilman Goods.
I know several of these establishments in the facade grant has worked for them. I remember the one building that's on 29th Street. It's been utilized for all kinds of things, and the way it is now is very, very lovely. I know the barber shop, the Brooklyn Strip. But what I noticed about these buildings, these are people who can afford to meet the demand to match those grants to do work. And so that's what my concern is how can we formulate some type of program for those who fall below the threshold to help them with their building to revitalize the area. So what I'm looking for with the program, if a certain district CRA has funding, to look at a way to help those in need. And I think that's the challenge sometimes, those who fall below those thresholds and just can't meet those particular guidelines that are set. So we have to look to help everybody and have tiers that we can be able to assist those individuals.
Well, and I heard you giving some direction towards the chair of the East Tampa CAC to go back and look at that and see if they can't come back with a program that makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Carlson.
First of all, intellectually, I understand the idea that if one of the three stated purposes of the CRAs is to alleviate blight, and having a facade change alleviates blight, so that matches that. Historic preservation, I'm also very in favor of. My constituents are very in favor of it. If it's a historic building and it helps to preserve an historic building, then that's, I think, relatively easy to justify. And I have no question about how you all keep track of the numbers and all that. It seems like you do a very good job of finding all the matching money. My question is really the same as Councilman Goods, and I wish we could do it across all CRAs. I don't know how we can set an overall policy, but it seems like, looking back through the ones I've seen over the last few years, the people who get it are the people who have the lawyers or consultants that understand how to find this and they know how to apply for it, and they're people or companies with means. And I think, one of the overall guidelines for a CRA is, if this money was in the general fund, would you spend it the same way? And I don't think we would spend that money in the general fund to subsidize a company. And this gets back to part of my overall economic development policy too. But I don't think that we would spend the money to subsidize a company that can afford to otherwise do it themselves. And nothing bad about anybody who's applied for it before, but can we limit it across the board for either historic preservation and or some kind of need, so that we're not subsidizing big companies?
If that's the direction of the board, that is something I can look at. I can tell you that I don't know if we would have the same kind of velocity that we've had in the past, but I think that as Councilman Good suggested, having different tiers would be another suggestion of doing it to different folks.
Yeah, back to what, if you look at the guidelines, I'll talk about this more in a minute, the kind of guidelines for CRAs, one of the primary objectives is affordable housing. And so in the last month, we've approved two $50,000 facade grants. Based on what I know, we could buy anywhere from 2 to 6 lots for that, and engage developers to build affordable housing. And so if a primary role is if one of the primary roles of a CRA is to work on affordable housing, I think we have to compare whatever the subsidy is. And although velocity may be 10 people applied for it and got it, Councilmember Dingfelder has challenged us to have 1,000 affordable homes a year, and we need a lot of velocity there, and we could use the money to create that velocity too.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Thank you. I too feel a little bit uncomfortable when I see some of the names that are behind some of these facade awards, because I'm not gonna vote against them today. I think they're well along in the process, and that would be unreasonable to change the rules in the middle of the game. But I think for future reference, I agree with what Bill and Orlando said. I think that staff needs, not just East Tampa staff, I think you and the rest of all of your managers who are doing facade grants need to look at this perhaps on a need basis. And I'm not saying shut people out if they happen to be wealthy and have a very successful business or company or what have you, but maybe they only get 20% and they contribute 80% or something like that. So it's sort of maybe a floating scale. Conversely, if somebody is really needy, I'm not saying they should have some skin in the game, but maybe it's a flip side of that, and we give 80% and they give 20%. So maybe more of a floating scale. The details of that, I'll leave up to your brilliance and your team.
We're in trouble then.
But that's just my point. I think that it might be helpful to have that in the form of a motion, so at least you have some firm guidance.
Please.
If you're going to spend the time on that. And Mr. Carlson, that was kind of your idea from the beginning. Do you want to make a motion?
I would move that we ask staff to come back with a recommendation to limit facade grants to historic preservation and or need.
Hang on 1 second, please. Hang on 1 second. We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Goods. I feel there needs to be discussion not only between the members on this board, but also legal, Mr. McDonough, and possibly even any staff that's out there. So, can we have discussion starting with Councilman Moran?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was listening to it as I went to the office for a second to get a cough drop, but facade grants, in my opinion, are something to enhance not only the building, but the appearance of the neighborhood, an entryway, something that you see that was run down and needed some infusion of hope and prosperity coming around. And if you look at Drew Park, just take a look at Drew Park, take a drive down Lewis, and see some of the differences. And you've seen them here when they come to you. And what a difference has made, not only there, but wherever there were facade grants granted. Like talked earlier today, the building on Main Street that was talked earlier. The buildings in Ybor City, the buildings hopefully in East Hampton. It adds something to appearance that the building is the area prospering in one way or another. And to just narrow it down to something, it's not going to help the CRA. That's just my opinion. It becomes an area then that, and it's not based on anything but the building itself. We do not only the facade grants here at the CRA, but on the other hand, on council, you do ad valorem tax reduction to individuals who want to spend their money and bringing up some structure that more than likely would have been torn down 10 years or 5 years or 2 days from the date that they applied for it. And because of that, not only has it saved a building, it's revived it to its original status back in the 20s or the 30s, whenever it was that was built. So that's the route we're going to go. I'm not going to vote for it. That's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Councilman Bureau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, I think there's a middle route here, which is I think there is support for, and I think unless if I was reading it wrong, that's where Councilman Dingfelder was going, I think, which is to not have a one-shoe-fits-all policy where we look at either for a historical nature or explicitly on need, but is to set aside certain facade grants for individuals who may be lower income. When I think about facade grants and entrepreneurs, for example, I think about helping people have a pathway to the middle class, a pathway to the American dream. And we have a lot of people getting those facade grants who already got into the middle class, maybe even got into the upper class, et cetera. And I understand some hesitation whenever it comes to having all facade grants available to people along all economic spheres. But I think that a better middle approach would be to ask staff to potentially have a designated number where, you know, the applicant maybe pays for 20%, 10%, maybe even 0% under certain circumstances for certain individuals, as opposed to more of a one-shoe-fits-all rejection of the current policy we have today. I personally think there's more of a middle ground to be held here, which I could support. But the motion as set, I think, is more of a one-shoe-fits-all type of a policy, my opinion. But I think there's a good middle ground.
Yeah, what, do you want me to, would you like to add that to them? I wasn't trying to limit it in any particular way, so if they could come back with recommendations and options, I don't know how you amend it to add that to the motion.
If we could, Councilman Carlson, I'd like to hear from the rest of the board and legal before we take a vote on this. Councilman Maniscalco, do you have any?
Well, in regards to the facade grant programs, I mean, I see the before and after pictures. I've sat here for 4 years, and I've voted for so many of them, and I see how it enhances an area of a building. I mean, here's another example. Look at the complete difference. It's like brand new construction. At the same time, it's not. Here's another one. You know, it boosts morale. It boosts I think it boosts property values, because, you know, there's an investment on one property, it might inspire a nearby property. You drive through, I mean, I've seen so many from Drew Park, I mean, Lois, for example, south of Hillsborough. I'd go there all the time to get used tires because I didn't have the money for new tires. So I would always go there, and it was a disaster. Now it's a completely different area, it's more welcoming, and it's a busy corridor. Here's another one, I mean, something like this historically, a building like this in the 1980s was probably about $120,000, $150,000, and now it's worth who knows what, north of $1 million. But that brickwork that you couldn't really replicate unless you spend a fortune today. I mean, look how it completely changes and preserves that for decades to come. You know, the facade grant program shows the commitment on the private property owner because they have to put down so much or they have to pay so much of it, and then our CRA dollars that are used, you know, within those boundaries are being invested where they should be, where you can see it, it's tangible, and that's really it.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Yeah, no, I think Mr. Mayor is right on. As a matter of fact, I was gonna propose an amendment to Mr. Carlson's thing. I don't think at this point we need to craft it. I think at this point we should throw it back to staff with the thoughts that we've given that have been bouncing around and say, come back, as Bill mentions, come back to us with, you know, with options. And go from there. So unless Mr. Vieira wants to make that amendment, I'll amend a friendly amendment to Mr. Carlson's.
And that's a suggestion. There's no one here who's seconded it, so you may have to start all over again, is all I'm saying.
Who seconded it?
Councilman Booth. Yeah, so, and if the gentleman who made the motion could withdraw it, and then we can bring it back
Or
up.
you can amend it himself, and then we can give him a new second.
Yes.
Before I yield to you, I have a statement. As much as I want to see the city of Tampa be one where there are no boundaries, each neighborhood is slightly different from the other. Each CRA is different from the other. Downtown is different from West Tampa. West Tampa is different from East Tampa. Drew Park is different from Channelside. I would much rather have each CRA come to us and say, this is how we would like to do the facade grant. And we have a motion here. I don't think I could support it, but if we want to proceed with friendly amendments, that's fine also. Legal, I want to yield to you on this. Can we are the ultimate decision for CRAs. Can we make this motion here and now?
Yes, you can.
Okay. There's a motion duly made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Goods. Is there any friendly amendments that you would like to accept?
If Councilman Dingfelder wishes to, you brought it up first.
Yeah, to add to your motion, Bill, just that staff also explore perhaps a floating evaluation based upon need, where it's need based. And I'm not saying we shut people out completely, but as the examples I gave, maybe it runs from 10% and 90% to 90% and 10% or something like that. But just explore that across all districts. And Mr. Chairman, I agree with you. We want this to be CAC driven. I think that's important. But at the end of the day, as you'll see on the next item, we're the ones who have to approve that expenditure.
And we can approve individually.
Right.
We don't have to brush everything.
But I'd hate for somebody to get this far in the process and then we turn them down on a case-by-case basis. I think it's better for us to perhaps revisit the policy, because frankly, there's been two last month and this month that I don't feel real comfortable about voting for. I'm going to vote for it, but I don't feel very comfortable about it because these are some wealthy folks who are getting CRA money. And let me clarify, I like this facade program. I think it's done really well. And I love the photographs and the examples. But again, I think this is just a function of, how do we spend our money wisely and who needs our money? Who really needs our money? And I think that some of those projects probably would have been done anyway. But folks, listen, I don't blame them. They are business owners, and they say, hey, we got a $500,000 project. We can get 50 grand from the CRA. Let's do it. I don't blame them for asking. I just think we need to be better, mentors or whatever the word is of that money. So anyway, that's my friendly amendment, just to possibly ask staff to look at this on a need basis, as well as everything else you mentioned.
Councilman Carlson, are you agreeable to that amendment?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry?
The second should agree as well.
Councilman Goose, do you agree? Yes. We have a motion made by Councilman Carlson, seconded by Councilman Good, with amendments from Councilman Dingfelder. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Nay.
Chair,
Roll
I'm
call.
going to ask the last city clerk's office, will you please have somebody state the motion that we just made?
All right, Councilman Carlson, would you,
So to ask staff to investigate the possibility of limiting or modifying the facade grant program to look at historic preservation and need-based tiers. That, and then report back to us their recommendations for us to consider.
is that good for you?
Is just staff or anyone else, sir? Just staff.
Just staff.
So, staff.
Okay.
Unless you want to include that they would get input from the committees.
Well, I think that we kind of overstepped that in the motion, but I think staff would be sufficient. Council? Okay, staff would be sufficient. Did you get an accurate, okay. Let's have roll call. Let's have, yes, please.
Dingfelder?
Yes.
Goose?
Yes.
Maniscalco?
Yes.
Viera?
Yes.
Miranda?
No.
Carlson?
Yes.
And Citro.
No.
Motion carried with Miranda and Citro voting no.
Are we finished with item number 4? Excellent. Let's move on to item number 5.
Good morning. Unfortunately, Ed couldn't be here due to illness, so I'm the substitute last minute. Just waiting for the slideshow. I'm going to be talking to you today about the downtown interchange as well as operational improvements and 275 north of downtown interchange. So this is the overall program map. Tampa Bay next. This is our current funding priorities. So we have the Gateway Expressway currently under construction, the Howard Franklin Bridge, which will be awarded in October, Pinellas County Corridor in 275, it was in 2024, partially funded for 275 north of downtown interchange, and the West Shore interchange is funded for right away. Nothing has changed since last time I spoke to you about that. Fighting with technology, excuse me. So this is section 7, or the 275 north of downtown interchange, where we are adding a lane, as well as hardening the inside shoulders for potential transit use. This is what it looks like. So we are within existing right-of-way. We are adding 6 feet on either side to get to the 12-foot lanes, as well as 15-foot inside shoulder. It's important to us to let you know that we took away express lanes here and back from the community. So this is what we came back with. In the SEIS, or the Supplemental Environmental Impact Statement, we're currently studying it. We have a public hearing next year, early next year. We had a workshop this past May, so we're working on drafting these documents. For the downtown interchange, we have the no-build option and the 4 options. The next slide will show you the history of that. So we had the big footprint from Tampa Bay Express. We heard back from the community we wanted more options, not having a lesser footprint in the downtown interchange. So we came back with 3 build alternatives, B, C, and D. Hearing back from it, we came up with, which is what was presented today in this past TIP hearing, of operational improvements, what we can do immediately or short term to address safety concerns and congestion issues. So on the right, you'll see the parcel impacts. So the rebuild options, reconstruction options are 180 to 200, most of which is already currently owned by the DOT. You have option C and D, which is a lesser footprint, or would be a viaduct. and the operational improvements are around less than 10. So I'm going to fly through the operational improvements. So we have a crash history, we have a crash problem here. It's 4 times higher than the state average, which is what the heat map is showing. So our first one is southbound 275 to eastbound I-4. We understand there's a choke point where you have a single lane ramp that's flying through the downtown interchange going to I-4. So our plan is to widen that to 2 lanes. It will require also the closure of Florabraska exits. We're moving into 14th, 15th, and also the closure of moving the Ybor exit to 14th, 15th, which will then be a frontage road going over to 21st, 22nd. We also will be moving it on the 275 northbound going to I-4. We're moving that exit down so you don't have to merge, or you have them coming off the ramp and people cutting over to get to Ybor. They can do so before getting into the interchange. So this is westbound I-4 to northbound 275, where we have a direct ramp from 14th Street going to 275 northbound. We also have from the 1-lane ramp going to from I-4 westbound to 275 northbound. It's going to 2 lanes, so you'll have 3 lanes going to 275 northbound. As well as you'll be able to stay in the outside lane and not have to merge over. Right currently, either you stay in that lane, you have to go to MLK, or you merge into traffic. With this new improvement, you can stay in that lane and go all the way to north of Hillsborough. So the last operational improvement that we're proposing is we widened the ramp, so we're getting 3 lanes and auxiliary lanes. So moving the downtown interchange, so the downtown exits downstream, so you don't have the choice between 275 northbound downtown exit or 275 southbound from I-4. We're moving it down, getting rid of the extra bridge that's there. And so the downtown exit bridge is going to be removed, and then widen the bridges that are currently there. We'll get full depth or full width shoulders on that, which is a safety issue. Currently, people don't have anywhere to go if there becomes a disabled vehicle. They just take the lane. So this is a click through of what the operational improvements look like. So these are the exits that we're proposing to close. This is not something new. This is historically been talked about before. So then moving the ramp to 14th, 15th. So that's widening the flyover ramp to 2 lanes and then providing an exit out to 14th, 15th from 275 southbound.
Can you hang on
May I
a
ask a
second?
question?
Councilman Miranda.
On the removal of the exits and so forth and so on, and opening of others, what is the cost and who are you removing from that 13th and 15th Street? And you're not going to do anything after you close the one on Florabraska, am I correct?
Could you repeat the question, sir? I apologize.
Well, I haven't gotten to it yet. The exits that you're closing, sir, and the ones that you're going to shift to another location, I guess that's what was said. The ones on 21st and 22nd Street that you're shifting over to 14th Street and 15th Street. That's 14th Street, if I recall, is Avenida República de Cuba, right?
Sir, I'm sorry. So
I'm sorry,
we're moving from, so the Florabraska, we're moving down to 14th, 15th, and we have a frontage road going to 21st, 22nd. We're trying to get rid of that merge.
All right, you're opening a new exit and entrance ramp, I assume, on 14th and 15th Street.
Yes, sir.
Right.
That's correct.
What is the cost of buying that property? Don't you have a school there?
All that is done with an existing right of way, so there'll be no property purchase.
No personal, you're not gonna buy any property there. You got.
That's correct.
Between 14th and 15th Street, if I recall, you have the school.
Yes, sir.
That's on 14th on the west side, and the school on the east side of 15th Street.
Correct.
Then across the street, you got a vacant lot. Then it used to be the Boys and Girls Club, and I know it's being used now for very good purposes, an activity center for youth, and they're doing very well.
Yes, sir.
Is that part of the deal or not?
We don't have to purchase any additional properties for this. So that everything that we are working within for the southbound to eastbound movement is within property already currently owned. Southbound 275.
Gonna be a real skinny entrance then.
It would be just to our standards.
Yeah, well, the standards will change soon because traffic won't handle small little thing to get in and out.
There would be more traffic on that, yes, sir.
Okay, we'll see.
Yes, sir.
I'm just marking history for you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Are you finished?
I'm finished.
Then, just to follow up that question real quick, how much property do you own there? How much property does FDOT, how much right-of-ways do you all own in that area? 14th, 15th Street.
Off the top,
Ballpark figure, half an acre,
Probably
5
a dozen
acres, 10
properties.
acres, 20 acres?
probably dozen parcels.
How long have you owned them? Excuse me, let me rephrase it.
Yes,
You're
yes,
just,
sir.
You're just a messenger. How long has FDOT owned them?
I would say we have purchased properties in the past 30 years. So all these properties were purchased as part of the Tampa Interstate Study that was approved back in the day.
And, you know, I've been to, I don't know how many of these meetings,
Understood.
and plans have changed over and over and over again. But proceed, I'll ask questions later. I'm sorry, Councilman Goods.
I heard about the, my question is still, you know, my district has always been cut off, the blood's always cut. Continuously cut. It doesn't thrive. We close exits, and now we starve. And I don't think anyone takes in consideration of communities. I was a police officer a long time. Putting more lanes will not help with traffic control. The more lanes you put, the more people are going to get them. I don't care what anybody says. But we continue to do the same thing in gut neighborhoods. You've probably already made your decision because you've got your plans, but I can tell you, I have to, on the record, let the community know that I'm against Flora Basket being closed. If we've got engineers, we have designers, then they should be able to design that interstate to where it's not closed. Because when you does that, we've got a new restaurant at the corner of Flora Basket and the interstate. So now we close that up, they starve. They starve. And we're not taking consideration. We just think it's the interstate, and to me, when you build interstates and bridges, you're talking about high dollar people who are making money. Let's just build bridges. Let's just build lanes. It does not help people get off the interstate. We've got to find other alternatives. But for the record, I have to let the community know that I'm not in favor of Flora Basket being closed. It's a bad idea, and I just think that you have engineers, designers that can look and see how we can keep those pipelines of blood pumping. And I just want to make sure I say that for the record.
Councilman Goods, thank you. I feel the same sentiment as Councilman Goods says. I apologize. Again, you're just a messenger, but of course we have to voice our opinions on this.
Yes, sir.
And in my opinion, closing Flora Basket is a crime to the community, it's a crime to our city, and it can be redesigned. I also have to add that the 14th, 15th, in my opinion, is going to also hurt Ybor City. Please proceed.
All right. Well, we're at 275 northbound, providing an exit ramp to 14th, 15th instead of the 21st, 22nd. So isolating the ramp traffic away from getting onto I-4. This is the movement that you can get from 14th, 15th. So you can go south on Nuccio, you can go north into East Tampa, or there'll be a frontage road that you can get to 21st, 22nd. Provide access to Ybor City as well as the east part of East Tampa.
I hate to interrupt, but that is just a prime example of big trucks getting off the highway and traveling through Ybor City with narrow streets and clogging traffic. Thank you.
So we still have the on-ramp.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, by all means.
Councilman Miranda.
Okay.
I just even hate to think of this idea that flashed through my mind, but once it gets flashing, this one cell brain, I gotta bring it out. When my colleague here to my right, the chairman, talked about big trucks going in through Neutral Parkway, which is a two-lane on both sides heading north and south. That's in the vicinity of what that land that was being talked about building a baseball stadium, am I correct?
That runs to that that area, yes, sir.
And moving an exit to 14th and 15th, I don't understand. We did something already to the folks that live, the good folks that live in East Tampa on 22nd Street and 21st Street.
Okay.
And when you're going, and now that's gonna close, right?
The exit ramp
The
to
exit, yes,
21st,
sir.
22nd.
You can't get on, in and out.
Is being moved to 14th, 15th.
So you gotta move to 14th Street.
Yes, sir.
And yet we want that area to prosper, and most of the exits in and out of that area is the ones that go extremely right into East Tampa. So how is East Tampa gonna prosper? And this is just my opinion, I may be wrong. That if you have a way to get home, a way to find a way for a business to start up, and you're not gonna exit on 21st Street or 22nd Street, which wherever you're coming, east or west, and you're gonna move that to 14th Street and 15th Street, how are they gonna prosper a mile and a half away? And again, I'm not talking to you.
No, I understand. Yes, sir.
Because your hair is gonna be like mine pretty soon. They keep sending you, brother, you're gonna be bald. And so what I'm trying to say is, the distance between 14th and 21st is 6 or 7 blocks.
Yes.
I don't see the advantageous, and I'm not a road engineer. I just don't see it. Unless there's something happening that we don't know about further south.
Right,
Around Animal Drive in that area.
right.
Maybe the big boys got to the bigger boys.
This plan to move to 14th, 15th has been around for decades. So it was.
I'm not saying it hasn't.
No, yes, sir. And the 14, 15 move is to get rid of, there's a weave condition where you have traffic coming off of 275 wanting to get to I-4 and having to either people coming and wanting to get to the exit of 21st, 22nd. So we have a weave condition that we're trying to alleviate that by isolating ramp traffic. But I understand and I hear what you're
And
saying.
I agree with you, because the problem is on that area where you gotta go around to go to Orlando, you gotta get that route, it's backed up to Sly Avenue sometimes.
Yes, sir.
And that I understand, and then us, people on the earth is not crazy. It's the people on the earth that are crazy. And when you see that expressway backed up, you see people go to the other lane, to the left of it, and then they bottleneck because they want to get back in where they came from. They know they were trying to cheat to get in front of somebody. And nobody's there to give them a ticket. I write tickets there all the day if I was a cop.
Right.
All of them. I make my quarter in 15 minutes.
Yes, sir.
But it's not done.
One of the benefits of this operational improvement, and I apologize for not stating this earlier, is that you can stay in one lane and get to that exit so you don't have to do a lane dive to get into the on-ramp from MLK. So people, they won't have that mixing of traffic as frequent as it is now. Unfortunately, you have to, as soon as you get past over the MLK overpass, you have to get to the right in order to take the exit, and so you have traffic mixing. And because of the backup, you can't get to the Florabraska exit without merging people, so.
Councilman Carlson.
Thank you.
I'm glad to see you all excited about an issue also, not just me. Are you all going to propose resolutions at some point?
I believe today we are just hearing a statement from FDOT. I believe that's our purpose today. However, please comment how you'd like to.
No, I was just wondering if you all had any thoughts that you want to put on resolutions.
Oh, I've got plenty of thoughts, but I think we're doing resolutions right now. No offense to my friends at FDOT.
Understood.
Are you finished? Okay, and one last thing, and I promise I will let you
No,
continue.
I appreciate it.
Councilman Dingfelder.
Yeah, I was going to wait. Chairman, but so I'm looking at the program schedule, and it speaks to I-4 275 interchange funding, it says right away unfunded, construction unfunded. And that shows 24, FY 24 all the way to FY 33.
Yes, sir.
Has that changed at all? I mean, we seem to be having a lot of discussions about the interchange.
Excuse me, sir. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
does it have funding? Are we looking to modify this funding so we can make some of these really necessary changes? You guys came and told me the other day that there's an average of, what is it, 4 accidents per day or something?
Yes, sir.
Somewhere within a mile of the interchange?
Yes, sir. There is no current funding. There's no the priority is to get funding for the West Shore interchange, which is $1 billion in funding. Our annual budget is $11 billion, so that's a little less than a tenth of what our annual budget is. So with the budget and priority going towards West Shore, we don't have the money to address the West Shore interchange, which is why we introduced these short-term and operational improvements, realizing that we do have a safety concern that we need to address. I'm sorry, sir.
So
but
the operational improvements have some funding?
They do not have any funding, but it makes it easy. It's more palatable when you're talking about $50 to $100 million than asking for 900 million to 1.6 billion.
Right.
So that's why we're proposing to do something for safety. So not to ignore West Shore in spite of, or the downtown interchange in spite of West Shore.
And what, if anything, can we do as a body, either CRA or city council, to assist? I know this is typically an MPO, sort of an MPO issue, and then obviously it goes to the legislature and the governor.
Yes.
Is there anything that we as a body can do to assist moving these things along and getting you some funding?
It would be a consensus of support, either for the downtown interchange or operational improvement. We need to know what the city of Tampa and what the CRA is wanting as a priority. We've heard out overwhelmingly that West Shore is the priority for the region. So what, in lieu of that, what is the stance? So I appreciate that.
Councilman Gooch, you have something else to say? I'm going to let you continue, but I just wanted to make one more statement.
Oh, absolutely.
I've been seeing these changes, and I saw the last changes that were done, and it just seems to me that somewhere someone doesn't think to the future. And when this was already thought up, constructed, it was obsolete. And now you're asking for a change, 2 changes at the downtown interchange, which are going to affect neighborhoods. Closing of Florabraska and opening of 14th, 15th Street and closing at 21st, 22nd. Again, 70 years later, some mass transportation, something is going to again affect neighborhoods. Me personally, I don't think it's correct. But that's another day, another discussion. Please continue.
Yes, sir. So we have the exit ramp to from the westbound I-4, still present, as well as the on-ramp to eastbound I-4. We still have the on-ramp from 21st, 22nd, so you have the option of going either north 275, south 275, or the downtown exits. But we also add a lane if someone from East Tampa or in that neighborhood, in that area, wants to go to 275, they can hop on a ramp, dedicated ramp going northbound, so they don't have to mix in traffic. So we're adding at the elbow, if you want to say, we're adding 3 lanes to so 2 lanes to the exit from a single lane ramp to now 3 lanes because of this as well. And that's from Ybor, you can take the same ramp and get onto it. So, thank you for letting me finish.
Thank you. Any questions, any comments that he already hasn't heard? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Hang on, Councilman.
No, just procedurally, it appears that Ms. Monteleone made a motion a while back for you guys to come visit us quarterly.
Yes, sir.
So, as a furtherance to what I said before, I'm gonna study this and listen to the community, you know, on all these issues.
Yes, sir.
Frankly, I'm not sure West Shore is my priority as compared to the downtown interchange. But, you know, maybe there's a bigger picture out there that I'm not aware of. Anyway, if you guys are gonna keep coming back quarterly, maybe we'll have a motion for you next quarter.
Okay, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Councilman Goods.
I see the commissioner in the audience. Did he want to say anything to these issues at all, sir? This secretary.
Well, I threw Marshall in here to the to the wolves to see how he'd do, and I think he did all right.
We didn't offer him a cigarette or a black.
No.
Give your name, please.
And I do want to, I appreciate Marshall.
Don't say your name.
Oh, David Gwynn, District Secretary, FDOT District 7. And Marshall does run our program internally, and Ed has usually been the person to come up here and talk to you, but I talked to Ed yesterday, and you wouldn't have wanted him to have been here, because he sounded, I know, Councilman Miranda, you don't feel good. Ed sounded like he was feeling a lot worse than you do, and I didn't think he wanted him to be in here. But I want a couple of things I would like to emphasize. We are trying real hard to work with the community, all the communities. We have, you know, when I first came into position right after the Tampa Bay Express program was reset, we were looking at 200 parcels. We were looking at a footprint that was going to take big swaths of Tampa Heights, of Ybor City, of parts of, you know, we were just hitting a big footprint. And we heard the message loud and clear that right now is not the right time to take that big, huge footprint. And so what we did is we looked at options. As we continue to look for options, we started to hear more and more that the problem really was some of the safety concerns that we really needed to address. When you look at 1,500 crashes a year within the interchange for a day, that's a lot of your congestion right there. You get a crash, you're going to cause more congestion. I understand the induced demand argument, but I'll also say that you're not going to get rid of congestion. We understand that. Even if you have a good transit system, you look at any place that's got a good transit system, they have horrible congestion. It's going to come. We're going to have worse congestion. But if we build things within our existing right-of-way, we can move more people. We may still have the same type of congestion, but we might be able to move 35% more people through that congested area and continue to have a city that's going to grow and be vibrant. When we look at the Florabraska exit, I understand we are looking at every way we can try to not close that, and we'll continue to. That exit should have never been put there, to be honest, from a safety and geometric standpoint. It wouldn't be put there today. It wouldn't be something that we would look at. We were hoping by adding access to 14 to 50, we're not taking any access away from 21st, 22nd. These ramps will connect all of that together. You'll actually be having additional access at 14th and 15th, although I do admit that Florabraska would have to be closed. But that's the only way we really can get that movement from both the southbound to eastbound movement and the westbound to northbound movement to work. Because you throw those ramps in the middle and it really messes everything up. We can do all of that within our existing right-of-way. The only place where we need a few parcels, and what it is there's certain blocks where we might own 8 of the 9 properties, and there's one that we didn't purchase. We never condemned any property for any of this stuff in the downtown. It was all willing sellers. There's a few properties that we'd have to pick up that were always in the footprint of any option that we showed. So we are trying to work real hard with the community. On the funding for the downtown interchange, coming to these operational improvements is kind of a new thing that we came up with when we heard the message from the MPO, from others, that we didn't want to take these big swaths of land and build these big things right now. So we're going to work on getting that funding, and I hope to get that funding much sooner than the time that's shown in that map. But what I need to do at this point is we need to get through the record of decision, which is what the Federal Highway Administration will give us when we get into this study, hopefully next year. Then I can go to Tallahassee, and I can compete for the money that's going to go somewhere in the state. 50% of our work program is competitive. We compete with Miami, we compete with Orlando, we compete with Jacksonville. We lost about $500 million to Orlando 3 years ago when we more or less couldn't come to an agreement on what to do on the Tampa Bay Express. We want to get some of that back, and some of it would go to something like that. So we're showing what's there now, but I certainly am going to try to get those safety improvements and operational improvements funded much quicker.
What's the usage of
Councilman Dingfelder,
I'm
please.
sorry, thank you. What's the usage of Florabraska? I know I've seen it as an exit for years, and I just actually used it recently for the first time, and, you know, I just wonder, is it used very much?
It's an arbitrage of the neighborhood.
I got one word back. Amen. Thank you.
It's relative. I mean, certainly to the people that use it, it's heavily used.
Right.
When you look at the volume compared to other interchanges, it's not as high, but it's important to the people that use it. We understand that.
Councilman Goods?
Well, just for the record, I met with Secretary Gwynn, and we discussed some possibilities, or hopefully we can get some funding to do some things with those underpasses.
Yes, sir.
Those beautification, the spruce up our communities as well, instead of you seeing a bunch of painted areas, but it's all covered with dirt, or, you know what we discussed. Well, hopefully you can continue that conversation with your people to get some funding to do something with those areas.
Yeah, we will, and I actually sent you some information. You may not have a chance to look at it yet on a bunch of improvements, and we have several $1 million coming up soon on projects in East Tampa that we've added just recently. A lot of it's highway lighting. A lot of it's we put in a signal at 26th and MLK. That'll go in hopefully toward the end of this year. We're going to be putting signal wraps around our cabinets. They're artwork done by local high schools that we use. You know, now you got the old silver cabinet out there. It doesn't look so great. You wrap them with these wraps that are artwork done by local high schools, and it just brings a lot of, but those types of things, we'll look to those, and we're going to look to see what we can do on the maintenance side as well. I actually drove through all the interchanges in East and West Tampa yesterday, and called our maintenance contractor, and we got to do a better job on that, and so we're looking at it hard.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? You and I have known each other for a long time. You've seen me at many of the public hearings. You've seen me at many of the informational things. On your lovely graphics where it says Tampa Bay Next, I see a bus, a car, a boat, a plane. We have over 100,000 people each and every day that come to the downtown core from Pinellas, Polk, Pasco, Manatee, Sarasota, Highlands County. We can get a third of those people off the roads by public or mass transportation. Something to me says FDOT, Department of Transportation, rail, rubber wheel, whatever. If we can get a third of those people off, in my opinion, it's not the citizens of Tampa that cause the traffic congestion on our interstates. It's the people coming into the downtown core for work. Mr. Quinn, I thank you and your staff for being here today and giving us this report.
I will say, though, we fund transit over historically more than any other agency in Tampa Bay. We have put a lot of funding into transit. What's been lacking in the past has been the local match, because we match funds. We don't just, we're not a transit operator. We are funding the streetcar expansion. We are putting money into a number of other projects that are in the infancy phases that hopefully we'll get, and we're committed to providing you transit matching funds so we can go after federal funds. So we're not just Department of Roads, and now that we have a funding partner that actually has a dedicated revenue stream that can be used for that, we hope to be a bigger partner. So we're not just roads.
Too bad we can't have a motion like we did FDOT. We need this the most. I thank you, Mr. Gwynn. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Now it's time for public comment. Each person wishing to speak during public comment will have 3 minutes.
Did we approve item 6, or you?
I apologize. Thank you very much.
I'll move.
Go ahead, make the resolution
Move item
if you would
6,
like.
resolution item 6, facade grant for 1503 East 7th Avenue.
We have a motion made by Councilman Dingfelder, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Oh, really? You want a public comment first?
Well, public comment was before number 6. Thank you very much, Council. We're going to now have public comment. Each speaker has 3 minutes in which to speak.
Hey, good morning, man. 'Tis not. It's government from top down, and it's politics from top down. And what you have is, just like Department of Transportation, just like you have with the mayor, it's called garbage politics. It's not for the people. It's straight out garbage politics, nothing more, nothing less. For so many years, African people have been right here, being promised what we're going to get. We don't get anything out of it. First, white people use bullying with the Ku Klux Klan, then they use trickery. They try to bully us with the Ku Klux Klan, then they try to trick us with Perry Harvey up there, Gwen Miller up there, Reverend Scott up there, the other guy up there. And what have we gotten out of it? Nothing. We come down here week after week begging like paupers. Came from a proud ancestry of individuals into slavery and into begging like paupers time after time. People down here, what the mayor came down here and spoke about last week. Some MFing artwork and some canopy in Al Barnes Park and painting a mural and doing some other night basketball for African kids. Like if that's the aspiration for African people, it's not. Absolutely, positively not. It's dictatorial politics in a capitalistic society, in a greedy, white, imperialistic, no good society. Nothing more, nothing less. And white folks like to bully you, like somebody came right here and tell me I talk too loud. I might not smell good, you know? I might be too black.
Speak, brother, speak.
Because they don't like nothing about us. They don't like nothing about us. I'm down here talking about the goals and aspirations of African people, and somebody who is in office tell me what? And you speak too loud. You scare us when you speak. How many African people have gotten murdered because what? They thought we had a weapon. In a nice little tranquil environment where you got 3 minutes to speak and then they try to bully you. I should call it sexual harassment. That's what I should call it. It's nothing more, nothing less. And it's garbage politics. 600,000 bicycle stops. Garbage politics. Nothing more, nothing less. Y'all treat us so bad. And now they talking. Black people ain't getting nothing out of this. Talking about grants and this and that. When black people used to make for ourselves and do our own in Central Park and West Tampa and Main Street, we did for ourselves. We ain't needed white folks' money. Y'all busted that up. It's garbage politics. And what we need to talk about is reparations and genocide. Nothing more, nothing less. All the begging is over with. Pay us what y'all owe us, MFs.
Right on, brother. Speak the truth. Speak truth to power, brother. You did. Set you free.
Good morning. Noreen Copeland Miller. I live at 1911 East Chelsea Street. And I'm here to speak about, I was listening to FDOT. I attended meetings for over the last year, and Florida, Nebraska was in that plan to be closed off when they brought it to us. The community said no, but it's clear to me that they wasted my time, the community time, because they already decided they're closing Florida, Nebraska off. And all of that they're going to do in Ybor City, once again closing off our communities. When we've let them know those roads are utilized by the community. We live in the inner city. They're not considering the residents. It's all about who's coming in from outside to commute. And I am really upset this morning to hear them come up and present what we said no to about 8 times in our community. I certainly hope that you all do not support any funding for that at all. Because I use Florida, Nebraska. I like to go to Ybor, but if they utilize those 2 lanes coming downtown that people only use in 1 lane, if they utilize that lane on the left-hand side and take it on wherever they want to go, because I don't want to just be pushed to Ybor, and I don't want to be pushed to South Tampa. I don't want to be pushed to St. Pete. But if they close Florida, Nebraska off, we have no outlet, and our community died. So this morning, I'm glad I'm here, and I'm very disappointed that FDOT has wasted my time and the residents' time in East Tampa by going forward with their plan to close up our community once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good morning. My name is Mona Judge, and I'm a resident, a business owner in East Tampa, and I also do not want Florida, Nebraska closed. They've already closed 34th Street, 40th Street. I own a business on 40th Street. My mother lives off 40th Street. when I'm coming into the city, I have to get off on 50th to get to our house or my business, or 22nd. Floribusca is used. I used it for 4 years straight, taking my daughter to school. What do they want us to do? Where are we going to get off? How are we going to get into East Tampa? And my second thing is the facade grant in East Tampa. We've been a business owner since '78. I just found out about it last year from Connie Burton. So I have applied for it, and hopefully Ed Johnson, I met with him last Monday, I think. So I will be submitting an application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Natasha Goodley, 2705 East 24th Avenue. This is in response to TBX. As of April 2019, one person is hit every day while walking or cycling on the roads in Hillsborough and Pinellas counties. Hillsborough County ranks 4th in the state for pedestrian deaths. And FDOT created a safety campaign that was implemented in 2011, and deaths have continued to rise even after the $9 million was spent on the campaign. Yet we have poor or non-existent biking lanes, sporadic sidewalks, and non-existent crosswalks for our children in East Tampa. However, our focus is on closing vital exits within East Tampa to alleviate low-impact crashes that almost never result in deaths. Within the last week and a half within the East Tampa CRA, we have seen 2 pedestrian deaths just in the past week. We lost 40th Street exit, 34th Street exit, and now Floribusca in 21st. When will we stop boxing East Tampa in but expecting the areas to prosper? When will we actually listen to the people? If safety is our concern, then let's actually address pedestrian deaths. Let's be proactive instead of only adding crosswalks that serve as memorials to the many people killed crossing our streets. We can expand the streetcar to East Tampa, complete sidewalks throughout our footprint, utilize the CSX tracks, upgrade our bus system, work with rideshare companies to bring about the carpooling features that other cities enjoy, and increase lighting within our community. How about we do these things first before we continue to suffocate an asthmatic community?
Thank you. Next.
Good morning. I'm Carol Joseph Marshall, 19046 Bruce B. Downs Boulevard. I fought years ago with Mayor Greco, FDOT, about cutting off East Tampa. I lost because it's cut off. Please listen to the community. We are asking, please listen. Now about the East Tampa Partnership. I came here this morning after looking at the agenda. East Tampa Partnership is different from all the other CRAs. When we created this partnership, and I was there at the inception, we wanted something different. We wanted the community to direct how things work. We planned it. Chloe, Miss Coney, she can vouch for that. We fought day after day. We did our planning. We did everything. We worked. We were called all kinds of names because what we were doing, some people didn't like. But we stopped and we got the neighborhood involved to tell us what they wanted for East Tampa. We have a committee that works mainly with the community. That committee comes in, listen to the manager direction, listen to the guidance. We get guidance from the law department, from Sal. We get guidance from everybody, every department, to make sure we implement things right. We started a facade program in East Tampa. It was too many paperwork. The community didn't want to do it. Some property owners, they did not trust people in the city We went out as a group. We met with different people. We brought them in. We changed everything to a one-page format so it would be easy. There is a whole lot that we put into this. Every time a new person comes in, we can't just throw things out. We need to enhance what we have. Work on our plan, enhance our plan, but don't throw it out. I did small business symposium since 2013 to last year. Worked with the Hillsborough County, worked with the city. I worked with everybody trying to help East Tampa. And I'm sorry, but I am just riled up today. I could go on and on because I am passionate about East Tampa. I walked away last year and now I'm back. Okay? I'm back and I'm back to stay.
Thank you, ma'am. Next.
Good morning, Johnny Johnson. The first thing I must ask you guys, because none of you up there blind, look who always up here at public speaking. Minorities, East Tampa, because the other part of the city is okay. You all said it. So it's not a fight of what could be done, it's what need to be done and addressed, because we all agree there's an issue. The first thing in correcting anything is admitting that it's an issue. We all agree that has an issue in East Tampa. The problem is we elect you guys to do a job and work on our behalf, which is not being done. The sound bites are beautiful. All you guys say the wonderful things that get you over the hump. Enough talking. Implement. Do action. It's not about what's color or this and that. It's about political no, it's about correctness. Do what needs to be done, because at the end of the day, we're all taxpaying citizens. Florida Department, that guy got up here and said he upset because he lost $500 million to Orlando. It's about people over money. You know what I'm saying? We count. We are somebody. I live on Elmore for 20 years. That's the east. As soon as you cross Florida, Nebraska off East Tampa. Close that. Where do you get off to go up 21st to get into any street that's going eastbound if you close down Florida, Nebraska? None of these people concerned about Florida, Nebraska being closed down, because guess what? They don't live in the area. So it really don't relevantly affect them. But trust me, when you start infringing on them, they'll be up here standing. Unfortunately, we the only people being trampled on and been infringed on, so that's why you always, when it comes to public speaking, we the only ones up here standing for. And it's just sad that we have to ask, because we pay our just due to have what we want because we pay taxes. Then we'll elect y'all. If it's a strong mayor, we ask you guys to do your job and hold the mayor accountable where you can, and that's on these budgets. These people down here, y'all subsidizing the wrong people. We getting the short end of the stick every which way, no matter what the topic of discussion is. It's a problem, because again, the people that's gonna come before this podium are the same in one area. We share the same skin complexion. Do you understand that? All you guys are challenging enough to know what's right and what's wrong. We pay our taxes. Again, I was down here a month ago about the bike lanes up and down 40th. All the debris is still there. If a crash happened, you got to dissect yourself through glass debris, sticks and stuff. So when you come down here and we pay taxes, man, it's just fiberglass, and that you guys sit up there, again, in my opinion, especially you, with no concern for others, man, and that's sad, man. But when, again, just look at the people that's gonna come before you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Council. My name is Bishop Michelle B. Patty. I would like to start off by thanking you, Councilman Goose, for putting the article in the paper concerning this meeting this morning. With that being said, I was really hopeful. I was feeling really good when I was hearing all the fine things that you all were saying about East Tampa and how we need to change the guards and how we need to do things different so we can get a better result. Then we come to closing off Florida, Nebraska. Florida, Nebraska, and Councilman Dienfelder, you did some great things when you were saying about the sliding scale. I like that. to help East Tampa, but how can you in good conscience, anybody vote when you don't know what's out there? For you to ask the poignant question, is that being utilized? That sparked the thought in my mind, you haven't used it. You cannot vote on something if you do not know how it affects the community. I get off on that exit many times on my way to Brandon because the traffic is backed up. But I also get off on it if I want to go over to Nebraska, if I want to go down all the way to 21st to the Florida Central Bulletin, if I want to go to West Tampa. That exit is a very viable exit. You cannot dictate human behavior. A lot of time the traffic is backed up because there's an accident on the other side of the street and people stop and they're rubbernecking and they're trying to see. Has nothing to do with that lane. Now, where I do have a problem with the interstate, when they put the Brandon exit forward to the left, I'm coming from the right, I put my life in danger trying to get over so I don't miss the exit and people not allowing you to get in. To the CRAs, people need to know about what's out there. How are the CRAs marketing to the community? The community, there's still this same little circle, same part of people who gets the benefit of the CRAs, get the benefit of the money because the vast community is not aware of what's going on. And for you to say you have almost $4 million as a carryover, and you see the community in the blighted state it's in, that's a problem. You cannot tell me people don't want to utilize the money, don't need the money, but if they're not aware of the money and you keep moving the goalposts, then they can't get to the money. So this council, I'm very hopeful, men, that you all are listening, that you all are in tune, that we need to change. And to Charlie Miranda, I like to say thank you. You've always stood firm, whether you one vote, standing alone, on what's right and what's not. You know the dots are dotting up for people to get to the raise. The raise is not dead. It is still alive. They're still trying to get in Tampa, and that's why they want to shift the traffic downtown. So thank you so much.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Councilman Dinkfelder, Ms.
Patty.
Bishop.
Yes.
Ms. Pell.
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, you mentioned my name, and I just
Yes,
want,
sir.
I just want to respond. I think I was very frank
Yes,
in
appreciate
admitting and acknowledging
appreciate
that
that.
I didn't use that exit.
Yes, sir.
And that's, you know, and I don't know if you meant to be critical about that, but I was just telling it like it is. You guys responded and said y'all use it, and that's why we have this give and take, so I can get better informed. Now, my dad recently moved over there to Palm Avenue, okay? So one of the, and my wife and I are actually moving up to Seminole Heights. So, you know, we will be more in that area, and I will be more exposed to that. But anyway, I just hope that you give me a little love on that I'm just trying to stay informed. Okay?
No, I'm giving you a lot of love
Okay.
because you was honest and you spoke truth to what's going on. So no, we want to thank you. No, that was not a criticism. That was saying that you need to be more knowledgeable about what's that exit is about.
That's what we're trying to do. Thank you, Michelle.
you.
Ms. Burton.
Good morning. The reason why we continue to come here is because, of course, this is our council, and we have an absolute right to demand that our community have all of the amenities that the community is making a demand for. My concern has been with the CRA because it has operated in ways in which I believe a little dictatorship. That a few people got the knowledge, few people want to have the power. And so we're going to have to go on the radio to expose a whole bunch of people. And if we have to get more radical than that, we will, because East Tampa belongs to all of us, not to a few of us, not to people that are trying to hold on to their jobs that's there, not for the people that pimp our community out as they go about this community expressing their love for the community, but they make sure all the money stays at the top for them. That we need to have full prosperity, and we're not getting it. To have $1.6 million laid at the table when the community is blighted, when we are talking about affordable housing,
We don't need the city to dictate the direction in which we need to go in. And that's what's been happening in East Tampa. What's been happening in East Tampa, it has been deliberate. It has been a continuation, whether you was born in 1960, 1940, our communities have been destroyed. We want to have a rebirth in our community. We want to make sure that when we look at the budget, that it is not filtered to people who want to give it to. One criticism that I've had is that you got a veteran police officer, 24 years experience, that's being paid out of the East Tampa budget. His car, $5,000 for the upkeep of the vehicle, $134,000 for his salary. We got enough police in our community. We got code enforcement in our community. We got everybody in our community that can do this job, showing favor. And for some of you all that do not think that we should be rotating, that if East Tampa in the 15 years that we had Ed Johnson, that if that community was vibrant, being led correctly, you know what? We wouldn't even be down here talking about East Tampa. We would say we would have a skip along to a new administration and we would be prospering. We're still working from the 2009 strategic plan. We cannot present this to our children. We are adults.
There you go.
We are making a demand. You've been in office for 5 months. You got 43 left. And we are watching. We're wanting change now. The mayor can't come and give us no training program. We don't need no more damn certificates. We need jobs. We need growth. And that's what our demand is. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burton.
Good morning, Councilman. My name is Verlene Drayton. I've been coming to your city councilman speaking in regards to the housing conditions. I looked at the Mayor Castro budget. These are my little notes for me. $1.04 billion for transportation, and she's going to allocate the 7.75 new homes, 200 new affordable homes for rental. I just want to know, as I stand here, as this black individual, will any of this help me not be homeless again? I slept on the streets for 5 years. These nonprofit organizations, I don't know about them. I need to knit the city, the councilman, y'all need to check into them. Find out what are they doing. Because the condition of the apartment that I'm living in currently, I leave every day because of the smells, grown people, the sewer pipes. So this budget that is due in October and has to be spent or make a decision, I want to find out if anybody such as myself or the everyday people, will we be getting any of this money? Would it be allocated to our area? And if not, we need to know why. That's all I have today.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good morning. I am Sally Lee, and I'm here to speak. It's embarrassing and a slap in the face to pay people to move into our black community and live better than we do. It is really a sin and a shame that we have to go through this, and then there's nothing left for us. Where's the equality? How is the money being divided for startups and small business? Because we don't see no visibility of this happening in our community. And we feel like it is unfair and unequal judgment, the way things are being going, and we having to come down here and beg and plead for money and to be considered for anything in our community, as if we're invisible and we don't count. And God is watching us. He's not happy with it. See the size, the beaches, and everything corroded and all of that. Because God is not pleased with what's going on. So the sooner that we realize that we are bringing forth the trouble in the land and everything because of the way that we treat African American people, and God is not pleased at the way things are going and money being distributed and the lies that's being told. And this is the word for you all, and you all have to adjust, change things, and do better and live by right and righteousness. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Well, good afternoon or good morning.
Good morning.
Still. My name is Irma Celestine, and I live at 812 West Columbus Drive. For the past 14, 15 years, I've been trying to find out who is in charge of this place here, the city, because I try to see the mayor, and I've seen every department, whomever is in charge there, no answer at all. When I say I live at 812 West Columbus Drive, out of nowhere, just the city, they all dress the same, working on the road, and they dig a hole. They had fixed that certain area, that location, at least maybe 6 or 7 times, and I guarantee they spent over $1 million back and forth, and I come to realize that there is a conflict of interest because nobody wants to hear what I have to say, or they're not doing anything. I speak to this person, okay, they keep on calling me. They never really give me a concrete answer. So I don't even know now. I got so tired of it, and I got sick for a while, and I need to find out who is in my district for them to come out and see my problem. Right now in Columbus Drive, where I live, there's $1.3 million home that's been built, and I have 2 lots. I think something was deliberately done to my home, but I'm not leaving until I get a concrete answer. And not only that, from the beginning I told them, I'm not after money. I just want them to fix the road, fix my home.
Where do you live exactly? What is your address?
My address is at 812 West Columbus Drive.
Are you before North Boulevard?
Well, I'm on the west side of North Boulevard.
Okay.
And I don't know who's in, are you from?
Yeah. I'll give you my contact information.
Okay, because something has to be done. And as I said before, it's a conflict of interest. I noticed it right away. And I remember when I first started, I think Mr. John, at one point, what got me upset over the years, one council member told me that it's better to deal with the devil it's better to deal with the devil that you know than the one you don't know. And I've been catching hell ever since. This time, I'm gonna release the Almighty, the Creator behind whomever did me wrong. My mother wanted to live with me. She's 88. For the past 10 years, she said, I want to live with you. I want to live with you. I can't because my house constantly vibrating, shaking, and I put a bed right next to the window with a sledgehammer in case if anything happened, I can come out of the door because at any time, the floor can go. I want you people to really look at this thing here and tell me what to do. I'm not going to sell my home. I purchased it for $30,000. And the, how do you call that? Where am I going to find something like that? Nowhere. I'm a single person. My husband died several years ago, more than 30 years, in Vietnam veteran. I didn't get anything, not that I'm looking for anything. No, someone has to do something with my home. I don't know how much money I done spent on cutting trees. I went to all kind of departments. It seems like they know me. They said, if she comes, or nothing has been done. I want a concrete answer. Yeah, I should do. Yes, sir.
Please. Councilman Maniscalco is going to give you his card.
All right, thank you very much. Yes.
Next, please.
My name is Eddie Lee Darien Jr., and we talking about housing. A home remembered, the story of North Boulevard Homes. You gentlemen know about the book? It's in genealogy. The first projects in the South was North Boulevard Home. The President of the United States built those houses, okay? My parents were one of the people that lived there. As I sit back and I gaze upon that wall, I see the city of Tampa mascot, organized July 15, 1887. I'm 75 years old. I'm retired. But here's something that astounds me. There's a ship there that says mascot. I had no clue that that was there. Maybe we can get a start by telling the truth. Truth speaks to power. I'm not into facts. I found out you could be a factual liar. I'm into truth. Here's the truth. Arrived July 16, 1899 at the Key West port from Cat Island on the ship Fearless. He was 22 years old when he arrived. He was a British seaman. Money in hand, $5. Friend picked him up. The man that they're talking about is George Edgecombe. The name on the courthouse is a lie. This is the real George Edgecombe. Here's the 1930 census. This is Ancestry.com, point blank. They know it at the courthouse, it's a lie. We will never resolve any of these problems until we tell the truth. That name on the courthouse is my uncle's name, George Irvin Edgecombe Jr. If the name of the judge, and that's the first courthouse name in the South after a black man, is a lie. And what makes it even worse than that, there's a statue there of Lady Justice. It's just us that don't get justice. I have heard no justice in here at all. There it is right there. It simply says, my uncle was George Irvin Edgecombe Jr. So if this is the judge's daddy, how can he be George Edgecombe?
Sir, I'll give you 30 seconds more.
As I said, and I'll say it again, and I will expose this to everyone. They know it at the courthouse, it's a lie. At the museum, they know it's a lie. They even offered me a deal and said, well, we thinking about putting some of those signs up that tell you the history of Tampa. How would you like it if we put down there the judge's grandfather? Well, I said, you know what, I'll think about it. But I'm getting ready to expose this to the press, because until we stop lying about that courthouse and the person whose name is on that courthouse, and there's Lady Justice right there in front. Well, guess what? The judge's aunt named my mother, Justine Lavinia Edgecombe. The word Justine comes from the word justice. My mother died in Tampa Negro Hospital June 13th, and her nephew became the name on the 13th Circuit Court. That's strange. 13, that's a heck of a number. I'm only beginning, because they told me downtown there where they got the building about Tampa, they called me back, and when I handed them this up, they say, Mr. Darren, you're absolutely right. That's not the judge's name. Thanks for letting me share, but this is just the beginning to something that needs to come to an end, and then we can get something done in here. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Dickfelder.
Thank you. I'm not going to get into the family feud But I will say that, to the best of my knowledge, Judge Edgecombe was a great man. The Lord took him way too young. His wife went on to do wonderful things at the school board. It appears, from the best of my knowledge, that they are a wonderful family, and I'm glad that we honored them with a courthouse. Now, if there's some sort of family feud going on about who the real George Edgecombe is, that's that sort of thing, I'm not going to go there, but I just wanted to set my record straight on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Is there any other persons that hasn't spoke that wishes to speak? Thank you. Mr. Robinson.
Wow, man, give me some generous time. Look, you've heard testimony here today of mismanagement and that CRAs are being mismanaged. That's what all of these people are crying about. Now, I know that. We're not playing that in West Tampa. I hope the mayor does not reappoint this economic opportunity director. And you know who he is, because he's disrespectful. Case in point. Okay, let's just go down the list here. When they tried to sell the 18 acres, the RFP didn't even come to the CAC committee. Disrespectful. When don't ask us for any money, don't put the name CRA on that RFP. That's why we're asking for that property to be land banked and let the CRA buy it. And the CRA can control it, because right now the city owns it. This issue of the city and CRA has been misdone by the city for years, for decades. As long as I know CRAs existed. That's your problem. You have an inherent historical flaw. You have management that want to do what the hell they want to do, not what the citizens want to do. Right. We asked them to get a historical sign going. It's taken them 5, 10 years, 3 years. They have a conversation with FDOT. The man's sitting right there. I can put a sign up there quicker than that. That's discrimination.
Joe, I'll give you 30 seconds more after I make this statement. 2 months ago, I asked FDOT to give an historic sign to West Tampa. I believe you remember that.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. You got 30 seconds? You got 30? Give him a minute, please.
Well, I got more than that before you get there. Whoa, y'all click at the top. But let me go on, share. And that's a problem. When you can see it in Igbo, it's because we're a black area, period. That's why they don't want the sign up there. You can put double sign up. Don't come here with, the staff are lazy. Staff is supposed to get information to FDOT. They ain't done a damn thing. Okay? That's one of the problems. What we need to do is land bank them 18 acres to the CRA, buy it from them. We've got over $5 million in the West Tampa CRA right now. And none of it's been committed to anything because we have not even went over budget of what we're going to do with it. We got subcommittees coming up with that. That's because you got managers over here. And we don't want Ed Johnson in West Tampa. All right. We don't want to rotate bad news to what we got. We want Malcolm County. We appreciate Malcolm County. We don't want Ed Johnson up. So don't rotate no garbage over that part of town. Or you will really have a problem. Let me move on here, man. Look, we need the city needs to make sure and renegotiate the contract with the city of Tampa that manages the CRAs. Because the city of Tampa think they run CRAs. They think they can use the money from a CRA to get a ferry. They can use the money to do everything that the city-based taxes should be doing. And they're not doing that. That's why they're slumming blighted. When they had CDBG, they did the same thing. That's why I brought the FBI in here. Now, do I need to bring the FBI back? Let me get real. Let me finish. Now, we are tired of being disrespected by CRA staffers. We are tired of being more disrespected by the CRA Economic Opportunity Director. The man need to go. Mal, if you're listening, get rid of him because you're going to catch hell with him. He got 1 year to get out of here. I'm telling you. And this disrespect got to stop. And then finally, let me calm down here because I done heard enough nonsense. We were so disrespected, they tried to get rid of me as chair. Where in the hell is the policy attorney that you're supposed to have an agenda today because they left West Tampa out of the new policy that all y'all approved? They brought it to our meeting. West Tampa is not even listed in it. What the hell is that? We're supposed to be here today to have that policy updated because it's invalid, because it does not include West Tampa in it whatsoever. That was a mistake by staff, your attorney, and everybody that looked at it, and I caught it in 10 seconds.
And it was correct.
It has not been reissued. This board has not voted on it.
That was corrected.
Where is that? I ain't seen it.
Do we have a copy of that?
And I have not seen it approved by this board being corrected.
All right.
It is not approved. They told me it was gonna be on the agenda for August to correct it because of the policy that had to go for a vote.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson.
And thank you for your time, because I'm telling you, man, enough is enough, or else I'm bringing the FBI back.
Corruption to the core. All of you up there. Corruption to the core.
Yes.
One more.
Perpetrating corruption. White supremacy.
Sir.
That's what's going on.
Please.
I get a retirement check. I'm legit.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Break this corruption up.
Sir, please.
Put me out. You got that kind of power. You can take or do us what you want.
Sir, I am asking to please, let's control ourselves. Thank you, sir. We have lunch break coming up. I am going to ask this board, we have at 12. Yes.
Could I suggest?
I will get ugly at him, because I'm independently wealthy.
Mr. Robinson.
Could I make a suggestion that we defer the, that item, I guess, I don't know which one it was, but it was about the, the city versus a private entity running the CRA. We can defer that from my perspective for a couple months, but I think most importantly, we should get to the budget, work through the budget, and then take lunch. That would be my procedure.
Is that a motion you'd like to make?
If I may, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just that I need to leave here in about 35, 40 minutes. I have a terribly leaky roof, and I need to get a roofer. Yeah, it's not fun.
Thank you very much. If that's a motion you want to make while there is 5 members here,
I mean, I think
make that motion now.
the budget's time sensitive. I think we need to address it.
So are you making that a motion?
Yes.
And that was item number 3. You want to continue until our next CRA board meeting?
Correct.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Dinkfelder, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. On agenda item number 3, can you give us a date, please?
Next meeting? I don't know when it is. I assume it's in September, Bob?
September 12th?
Thank you.
Mr. McDonough, is that fine with you?
Sir, if I may?
Yes.
We had one item for approval, which was a facade grant.
Right, I'll move.
We didn't move it.
Well, we moved it and approved it, but apparently we were out of order.
I think we should redo it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, let me help. I'll move item 6 again. That's the facade grant, 1503 East 7th Avenue.
Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to that?
I don't think they need to.
I'm just asking.
They already did.
Just asking anyways, Councilman.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second to that?
Second.
I have a motion made by Councilman Dinkfelder, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
And then I'll move to defer item 3 to September 12th.
Second.
We have a motion made by Councilman Dinkfelder, seconded by Councilman Maniscalco to defer agenda number 3 until the 12th of September, was it?
No, I want to discuss item number 7.
Yeah, so just item number 3.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
And, yep.
Okay, Councilman Maniscalco has to leave.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Vieira has to leave.
In about 30.
In about 30 minutes. Are you able to come back? Excuse me, Councilman Maniscalco, are you able to come back?
Probably about 1 o'clock.
If my individual gets there at 1, I need to find out how bad the damage is, so that is yet to be seen. I will surely be back here for this evening, but after I can't commit, unfortunately.
Councilman, your pleasure. Can we recess until 1 o'clock? Can I have a motion, please?
The motion recess until 1 o'clock?
You have something? I mean, we got 4.
No, but I'm sure you do. Go ahead.
We've got 4. Can we just plow through it?
Sure we do. Then, by the power vested in me, I'd like to have a 5-minute recess. Thank you.